controls this mic? Huh? How do you turn this on?
Lauren, can you hear me okay?
Hey, John. Mayor Moore, excuse me. Mayor Moore, it is 7 p.m. if you'd like to call the meeting to order. Mayor Moore, you are muted.
Oh, dang. I'd like to welcome everybody this evening to the Cotati City Council meeting, the joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Can we have a roll call, Ms. Burgess?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes, here.
Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here. Thank you very much. And Mr. Ovid, if you would be so kind as to introduce our staff that we have present tonight?
Sure, Mayor, members of the council. So on my Zoom screen, I can't see everyone, but I assume we're all here. So we should have Michael Parrish, the Chief of Police. We should have Noah Hoosh, who is our Community Development Director. Angela Corder, who's our Administrative Services Director. And Craig Scott, who's our Public Works Director and City Engineer. As well as, of course, Lauren Burgess, our City Clerk, who you talked to earlier.
Thank you, our esteemed city manager, Mr. Ovid. Appreciate that. And now, if you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
United States of
States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now, do we have approval of the minutes and the notice of the regular meeting of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and adopted?
Move to approve. This is Councilmember Harvey.
Is that the January 26th minutes, Councilmember Harvey?
There's January 26th, and there's a special closed session on January 27th.
That's both of them. I'll second that. This is Councilmember Ford.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes. Thank you very much. I will go on to the announcement. For those in the audience and those out in public, meeting orientation for new attendees and viewers. In confirmation and conformance with the Brown Act and the adopted City Council rules, the meeting agenda includes items based on action items, where the City Council will consider the item and citizens are afforded the opportunity to provide comments relative to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizens' business item, which is a designated place on the agenda where citizens have the right to say whatever they wish. The City Council may or may not choose to respond to comments as the government code allows. However, if the City Council declines to respond, it should not be perceived as giving credence or agreeing with any statements that the City Council or its members believe are incorrect, misinformed, or purposely biased. Measure G supports police services, a variety of recreation programs for all ages, and the maintenance of our streets, parks, and public buildings. See details on the web at cotaticity.org. Citizens interested in receiving City Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to sign up at mixer.com or by texting your zip code 94931 to 888-777. It's our top priority to provide you with prompt and comprehensive customer service, and we continue to offer all city services. However, in the interest of public health, City Hall is currently closed to walking traffic due to the current health officer order. During this time, our services have temporarily transitioned to phone and web-based, as well as appointment by request. Staff continue to be available to answer your questions 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Like always, we'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to contact the city at 707-792-4600 or info@cotaticity.org. If you have a non-emergency issue after normal business hours, you can contact us at 707-792-4611. And of course, if you have an emergency, please contact 911. Continue to look for updates on the city website and social media channels available on Facebook, Instagram, Mixer, and Nextdoor. Thank you for the announcement. And now we're going to move on to proclamation. So, in light of the recent recognition from the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors, we have a proclamation Well, we had a proclamation. Oh, here we go. And Sonoma County has declared a declaration of unity for Sonoma County residents called United in Kindness. And with that proclamation, I'd like to read this. This is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cotati proclaiming approval of the Sonoma County Gold Resolution and endorsing the United in Kindness campaign. Whereas on June 9, 2020, the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a gold resolution endorsing the Sonoma County United in Kindness campaign. And whereas the United in Kindness campaign promotes and encourages all Sonoma County residents to find ways to foster and sustain acts of kindness throughout the community. And whereas the Cotati City Council is in agreement with, finds value in, and supports the intent of Gold Resolution. And whereas we recognize that kindness is at the core of what it means to be human. And whereas we acknowledge that positive relationships are grounded in kindness. And whereas we believe all of us benefit from living in a community in which kindness is a guiding principle. And whereas we are proud that our 500,000 Sonoma County neighbors come from diverse backgrounds, beliefs, and traditions in pursuit of joyful and healthy living. And whereas we believe that freedom from hateful speech, bullying, discrimination, and violence is a human right. And whereas we believe children and youth require a place to grow and learn in peace and safety, guided in kindness and caring. And whereas research shows that social and emotional skills, including kindness, can be taught and learned, that children benefit from these lessons, and that children who participate in school programs designed to teach social and emotional skills, improve their behavior toward others, have better economic performance, and show improved social emotional awareness. And whereas we understand that schools with hostile cultures, where kids feel threatened or distracted, make learning more difficult. And whereas the United in Kindness campaign actively works with Sonoma County schools to promote sustainable, self-guided discussions on inclusiveness, respect for others, anti-bullying, and daily acts of kindness with students. And whereas in order to sustain the resilience, health, and safety of all Sonoma County residents, we affirm in the social fabric that promotes and encourages acts of kindness and that disallows harm to individuals and groups based on ability, age, appearance, ethnicity, gender identity, language, race, religion, sexual preference, and socioeconomic position. And whereas over 1,500 individual Sonoma County residents have signed the United in Kindness Declaration of Unity, attached, and whereas 42 Sonoma County organizations, secular and non-secular, have endorsed the United in Kindness Declaration of Unity. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed on this 9th day of February, 2021, by the City Council of the City of Cotati, hereby supports the Gold Resolution and endorses the United in Kindness campaign. Be it further proclaimed that the City Council encourages all Sonoma County residents and find ways to foster and sustain acts of kindness throughout the community in their daily life and activities. Be it further proclaimed that the City Council encourages our leaders in education, government, business, health, and faith to build, affirm, and promote through education and initiatives in their area of influence, economy that promotes kindness and honors human life. Be it further proclaimed that as an example of the people of Sonoma County, the City Council will strive to engender and cultivate kindness in conducting the business of the council. Thank you.
Mayor Moore, we do have 2 attendees tonight from United in Kindness that would like to comment.
I would certainly welcome that, Ms. Burgess, before we open up that public comment for them.
Mo, go ahead.
Greetings. You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Greetings. My name is Mohammed Jafari. I have been living in Sonoma County for the past 39 years. I am the co-founder of the Interfaith Council of Sonoma County and founder and chair of the Sonoma County United in Kindness Project, which was formed in March 2019. This project came about after attending too many memorial services in honor of victims of race and hateful acts, locally, nationally, and internationally. One of the United in Kindness's major objective is to reach out, inform, promote, and unite people and city governments in Sonoma County through adopting and committing to sustainable daily acts of kindness in their daily lives and operation. Another important goal of United in Kindness is to work with the schools and the students to promote active conversations on race, racism, diversity, inclusivity, tolerance, and respect for others through poetry. We will proudly add the great city of Cotati to our list of 42 endorsers, while knowing you will promote and apply acts of kindness more vigorously within your area of influence. As a member of society, each one of us have a tremendous obligation to ourselves, children, family, community, and the humanity to actively engage and address inequalities and practice daily kindness acts in our interactions and areas of influence. This is a person-to-person and heart-to-heart work. Each one of us have an important role to play. We got to do it with kindness until acts of kindness becomes a shared practice of our society. At its simplest form, let us make a pledge starting now to commit to 2 acts of kindness in every interactions and every task that we are engaged with during our waking hours. Let us stand up and be instruments of inclusivity, tolerance, equity, and justice, and respect for others, and be the shining light when there is darkness, a beacon of hope when there is despair, and a source of joy when there is sadness. Thank you, the Honorable Mayor and Vice Mayor, and the distinguished council members, and Lauren Burgess for your support and leadership in honoring the Sonoma County United in Kindness with your proclamation of support. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jabari.
Liz, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name's Liz LaRue, and I've been a resident of Sonoma County for 42 years, and I'm a member of the United in Kindness Campaign Committee. And I wanted to thank you, Mayor Moore, for approving this proclamation, and many thanks to all of the council members for your support of United in Kindness's efforts to achieve a consistent, unified, and proactive statement in support of sustainable acts of kindness countywide. And what perfect timing for you to approve the proclamation during your citywide Love Your Neighbor Week. A special shout out to Vice Mayor Landman for helping us bring this proclamation before the council, and thanks to City Manager Damian Obid and City Clerk Lauren Burgess for your kind assistance. My friend Mo Jabari has described to you the background of the campaign. Many people think that engaging in acts of kindness is a simple thing to do, but I've come to understand that deep, active, sustained kindness is a radical act. In the aftermath of devastating fires and a flood, the people of Sonoma County witnessed and experienced monumental acts of kindness. Yet we're kidding ourselves, and we're part of the problem if we think that acts of intolerance, hate, and injustice don't occur on a daily basis in Sonoma County. Radical kindness challenges us to always speak out and fight against injustice rather than remain silent or complacent. And it demands that we hold accountable those who perpetuate injustice, spread hate, or practice intolerance. Radical kindness isn't motivated by self-interest, advancement, or recognition, but with the understanding that it's for the greater good, for all of us, for humankind, and it's not always easy. Promoting and sustaining kindness in our actions and in our thoughts and beliefs takes courage, understanding, persistence, resilience, inspiration, listening, and foresight. It takes a lifetime. We need strong, outspoken, proactive leaders who acknowledge, model, participate in, and promote kindness. The United in Kindness campaign has or will be contacting all the Sonoma County City Councils with a request to do what you've done tonight. In approving this proclamation, you'll be joining the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and the Sebastopol and Petaluma City Councils in forging a connection that reaches across city limits towards a united and common goal of promoting and enacting kindness throughout our county. We believe that it's the first time any community in the U.S. has taken on such a task of standing united in kindness. Thank you again so much for your support for our campaign, the United in Kindness campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney, and thank you, Mr. Jabari. I hope I did justice to the proclamation, but certainly something that kindness should not be allowed to like today. Thank you for doing that. Any other public comment on that, Ms. Burgess?
No further public comment.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to approval of the final agenda. Mr. Obid?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. There's no proposed changes. And Mayor, I will point out that your mic level seems a bit low, at least on my side. Sounds like everyone's hearing it.
Thank you. As we move on, I'll see what I can do to increase that level.
It sounded a lot better right there, whatever you just did.
I was just being much more assertive. Okay, so we have no changes to the final agenda. Now we'll move on to citizens' business. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any item listed on the consent calendar or any matter not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider, issue, or take action on any item not listed on the agenda during this period. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2017-2, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 2 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time limit for reasonable time where a disability accommodation has been requested. And with that, we will open it up to citizen statements.
As a reminder to our attendees tonight, please use the raise your hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment. And for those who are dialing in tonight, you can also dial *9 to raise your hand. Mayor Moore, at this time, it appears there's no public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. We'll move on then to our consent calendar items. Do we have any comments from the council on the consent items?
Mr. Mayor, if nobody wishes to pull any item, I'd be happy to move the consent calendar.
I'd be happy to second that.
Mr. Mayor, I did have my hand up.
Is there an item you would like to pull from the consent?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. It sounded like you're in a spaceship.
Did this sound any better?
Oh,
Sorry, Ms. Sparks, I didn't catch that. Do you have an item you'd like to pull?
I have a question, this being my first time with a question on the consent. Can I ask a question about something without pulling it, or would that need to pull it?
No, you can go ahead and ask the question. If we want to have further dialogue on that, then we might pull that item.
Okay, well, my only question was just about the local hazard mitigation planning agreement. I was curious to know how the public will be able to get involved with giving input on the hazard mitigation plan sort of earlier on in the process, because it kind of looked like there wasn't going to be any opportunity for public input until phase 3, where the plan had already been basically written, and I wondered if there was any opportunity to get some input earlier on.
Mayor Moore, I'd be happy to address that. Yeah. So, Councilmember Sparks, that is what you described, I think, is the standard FEMA process. It doesn't preclude earlier public participation if we want to do that.
Okay.
Okay, if we have no further comment, and if that answers your question, Councilmember Sparks, then we have a motion and a second. If we could have a roll call vote, Ms. Burgess?
Councilmember Harvey.
yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes. Thank you very much for that vote. And we'll move to item number 10, direction of future agenda items. Councilmember Harvey?
I'm unmuted. Okay, yes. It doesn't have to be immediate, but I know before all of this stuff happened with the pandemic, we were looking at the disposable food serviceware and polystyrene ordinance, and I would like that to kind of somewhere fit into one of our agendas again, now that we're kind of past a lot of things, and we have some updates to that from some of the other cities. So it's been passed and updated, and there are some capabilities for us to phase it in and put a later date to allow for businesses to kind of go through this that they have. So I would like to see that come back.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any other items in the council? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our public hearing. And the first one is the adoption of a resolution declaring intention to annex certain property of community facilities, district number 2017-01. I believe on this one, it's going to be our city manager on this?
Yeah, so I'll start really quickly, and then Craig Scott will take over for the presentation. But when we get to the end of this, there's a kind of a specific process and steps that need to be followed that I think Mr. Scott will be talking about. But I think you should also have sort of the steps outlined, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Shall we go over that now?
No, I think we can go over it after the presentation, but I just want to make sure that that's handy because it's a particular sequence of steps to move this item forward if that's what the council chooses to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Scott?
If I may, there is one line you get to open up the public hearing before the presentation.
This is the time and place for the public hearing regarding the proposed annexation of certain property to Community Facilities District 2017-01. The public hearing. And please have the staff report.
Yes. My name is Craig Scott. I'm the Public Works Director, City Engineer. And this item is to annex the city-owned property that we refer to as Jamie Lane into the Community Facilities District. Next slide, please. This district has already been formed. It was formed back in 2017. In this map, we see there's an area next to the train station, the Santero Way proposed apartment development was the first piece of land to be in our CF Community Facilities District. And then at that time in 2017, the city also identified the future annexation area as being coincident with the city's jurisdictional boundary. That is, so as future areas are proposed for annexation, as long as they're within the city of Cotati, then they are eligible to be annexed into the CFD. Next slide, please. So before us tonight, we have the Jamie Lane property. It's currently owned by the city, and it's located there on East Cotati Avenue for Ryan Lane, opposite the train station. And it's just about 2/3 of an acre. It is proposed, the city intends to sell this property, and we'll hear about that on another item on tonight's agenda, to the Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County for development into a 5 residential lot subdivision. But at this time, the city owns it and is going to move ahead with annexing it into the we're proposing to annex it into the CFD, and that is also a condition of approval for the Jamie Lane subdivision. Next slide, please. So that prior map, the original map and that prior annexation map both get recorded with the county after tonight's action. The Community Facilities District is to have new residential subdivisions pay into the costs, offsetting their impact on public services, and this is a list of the public services. Back in 2017, the city completed a fiscal analysis study to determine what the impact was, and then also a rate and apportionment study, which determined what level of what annual cost per housing unit and multi-family apartment unit would be their fair share. And these are for police protective services, maintenance of park lighting, parkways, streets, roads, and open space, maintenance of related facilities, equipment, vehicles, supplies to support that maintenance activity, flood and storm protection services, staff, and overhead costs. Next slide. Okay, before we move on, so that footnote there, the costs in fiscal year 2021 were set at $707.32 per single family residential unit and $471.55 for multifamily unit per year. And this assessment is adjusted by the San Francisco Urban Consumer Cost Index, or 2%, but no more than 4% a year. There's a formula that is in the initiating documents that sets what that is. So it has been adjusted since its inception in 2017, 2018. Next slide, please. For the timeline, we have the establishment of the CFD. We, subsequent to the Centera Way proposed apartment complex, which is not being constructed yet, over by the train station, we had the Kessing Ranch, 47 plus or minus unit single family subdivision annexed in, and we're seeing those homes going in. This would probably be a good time to note that May 1st of every year, we gather together all of this building permits that were flagged as being within the CFD, and we send off to the county, the assessor's office, a list of those properties so that they can be added to the assessment rolls. And it's triggered by when the building permit is issued, because it takes that amount of time. So by the time that house is occupied, it's already there on the tax assessment rolls. So it's fully disclosed to that property owner. So the city's not in the imposition a year later or so after it's already occupied, springing on this surprise additional cost. Okay, and then for this specific annexation, the council met last meeting on the January 26th and heard a resolution passed a resolution of intent to annex into the CFD, and it's set today as a public hearing date. The city council also in that action, as the owner of the property, requested that the property be annexed, and then approved being assessed. And so that was an important document to have approval on at the last meeting. And then today we're holding the public hearing and considering a resolution to annex the Jamie Lane property into the CFD. That concludes the president. No, there's one more slide, I think, which is just the recommendation to conduct the public hearing and adopt and consider adoption of the resolution. That concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I appreciate that. Are there any questions from any of the council members? Okay, seeing none. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this particular item?
Mayor Moore, at this time I see no public comment.
Thank you. If there's no further persons wishing to speak on this item, I'll ask the city clerk to advise whether any written protests have been received regarding this matter.
No written protests have been received.
Thank you very much. No written protests have been submitted. I'll now close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the council members for discussion or action. Do we have a motion on this if there are no further discussion?
So
Mr.
moved.
Mayor,
Sorry.
I'd be happy to second that.
We have a
I
mo-
wonder if we need to form that, though, in the full recommendation, because there's 3 parts to it. Councilmember Harvey, would you accept that as amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. As contained in the recommendation? Very good. I'll happily second that.
So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
A little formal for my liking, but I guess we have to do it in that regard. Okay, now we will move on to public hearing regarding introduction of an ordinance to revise the planning commission appointment process to allow for interim continuing service of existing members. And was this at the behest of our city manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So as the mayor had just said, this proposed ordinance is recommending a revision to Municipal Code Chapter 2.16, which governs the appointment process, terms, and removal, basically everything about the Planning Commission, and by extension, also the Measure G Oversight Committee, who uses the same rules to appoint and remove members. Basically, the short version of this is that that it's very possible that we could have an election cycle where, as everyone here knows, we have 3 council members up for election and 2 alternating every 2 years. And you could easily have an election cycle where you have 3 council members that leave the council and you have 3 new members come on. And how it is currently written, you could be in a position where the 3 planning commissioners that were nominated by those 3 council members would be gone for some period of time until new members are appointed to replace them, which could potentially delay city business on the Planning Commission or Measure G Oversight Committee. So attached to the staff report is a simple red line edit that basically adds to the end of section 2.16.020. This is on packet page 37. A little bit of text that basically says that term shall begin on the date of the first meeting of the commission after appointment and shall end upon either removal or ratification of a replacement planning commissioner. So it would basically allow them, any existing planning commission members or Measure G Oversight Committee members, to continue to perform those roles until the new council member selects a replacement for them. And that's pretty much it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Obey. Do we have any questions from the council?
Mayor Moore, I do have my hand up.
Harvard, please.
Not a question, but a comment. I think that it's prudent for us to do this because we want to keep the city business going on, and oftentimes right after an election, it takes council members a little bit to be able to publicize these positions and to go through applications and kind of vet those folks. And we want to have that continuity to be able to have a fully staffed planning commission and oversight committee so that the city's business can keep going on. So I think this is prudent for us to add these changes.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. Councilmember Spark?
I'd just like to concur. I think this is a great idea and agree with Councilmember Harvey.
Thank you. Any further comment or discussion on this? Okay, Councilmember Ford?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to wait till after public comment, but if we're doing discussion now, my only concern is the potential. We've got a very functional council, but I would rather have the term end upon the nomination and presentation to the council of a new nominee. because I'm worried about in a dysfunctional council sort of situation, if, say, I was a new member of council and brought my nominee to the city council and the rest of the council preferred the existing member, they could just decide not to ratify my nominee and thus leave the existing commissioner on the planning commission. So my preference would be to reword it so that the previous term ends upon the presentation of a new nominee to the council. I'd be interested in hearing from the city attorney whether there are any issues with that approach.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see any issues with that approach. I think Damien and I will have to craft some language to address that. Your thought is the term would end when a new council member is sworn in? Is that what you're?
No, when a new nominee to the planning commission is nominated at a city council meeting.
Okay. Correct. Gotcha. Okay, and then if that person was not appointed by the council or approved by the council, you would have a vacancy at that point.
Right.
And that would force the issue. I think that approach could work.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Vice Mayor Lemon?
Well, I hate I've become in the position of becoming the oldest person on the council, so I do the history part. But actually, we did used to have our planning commissioners were the sole pick of each individual council member, and there was no council ratification. And that was a change that was made some years back, and although at first, being a typical human being and having some resistance to change, I wasn't certain of the idea, I've grown to agree with it. And the thought was, indeed we do at times have adversarial relations or questions or this or that, and this was thought of as protection. It required some degree of consensus and some degree of back and forth between everybody, and just a small amount of protection in the case if there was an incredibly problematic nomination put forward. I think in a worst case scenario, perhaps what Councilmember Ford alludes to could happen, but I would see it as being unlikely. I think more likely this just gives us an extra card in our pocket to present against worst case scenario. So I think we have benefit either way, and I think we could run into problems either way, but I wonder if they're not somewhat equal. So at any rate, I wanted to put that forward. We're at this for a specific reason because we did look at this maybe 6-7 years ago, I think, and purposely went in this direction. So that's the history. What the group wants to do is fine. I'm comfortable with what we're doing, but I have no problem with going back to how we originally did it either.
Thank you. Councilmember Harder?
I concur with Mark's history lesson on this. I guess part of the problem that we're trying to solve here is to be able to continue the city's business. And we could end up in a situation where nobody's planning commissioners get ratified. And so then again, we could have a situation where there's 3 new council members and no planning commissioners and no planning commission business being able to move forward while that works itself out. So that's my only concern here is we kind of be back in the position of possibly not having a working planning commission or Measure G committee. I don't know if that or not, but.
Thank you, Councilmember Harder. Councilmember Sparks, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Ford's suggestion. I just to use our current situation as an example where I was having tremendous difficulty finding somebody willing to serve. If we made the changes that Councilmember Ford is suggesting, then whoever the old planning commissioner was would have continued to serve up until now, because no nominee would have been presented yet until tonight. So in the event that we were unable to find somebody to fill the position, there would, I like Councilmember Ford's suggestion, because this would fix that. This would only prevent us from having new people ratified if there were nominees that were coming to the council and for some reason, the council wasn't approving them.
Thank you, Councilmember Sparks. Councilmember Ford?
I just want to clarify, there seemed to be some confusion about what I was suggesting. So I'm not suggesting going back to what Councilmember Landman, or what Vice Mayor Landman mentioned, which is that there's no council ratification of planning commissioners. I'm proposing that with the current draft in front of us, what could ensue at a council meeting is this turns into an election between the existing planning commissioner and the new nominee. That's what the current language could lead to. My proposal would remove, on the presentation of a new nominee to the council, the term would end of the outgoing member, and then it would be before the council. Do you approve the new nominee, or do you leave the position vacant until another nominee comes along? So the council approval process would be as it is now, rather than switching to, do you like the existing person better than the new member's nominee?
Thank you. Vice Mayor Landman?
This will work much better if I unmute. That helps clarify things, but what I heard was I think we'll run into the same problem that Councilmember Harvey put forward, Councilmember Ford, in that you just said that if the new council member wasn't ratified, but then we would have to wait until a new one came along. And I think that was the idea of avoiding it. It seems we either take a chance, and this could go either way, but I can see that we either take a chance on being in a position where we have business that needs to be accomplished, and for a certain amount of time we don't have a quorum on some of our councils, or we try and stake our faith in the fact that the council, which has done a decent job at mending our differences and generally finding a decent consensus for the last 12, 13 years, will continue to be able to do that. I suspect there would be. Not ratifying a pick is a pretty dramatic direction to take. That's essentially a nuclear strike, in my opinion, politically. And I can't see people doing that in just the most worst case scenario. And if we truly devolve to that, that will be the least of our problems, I think. So if you can answer me how we avoid that, I might be interested in supporting this. Otherwise, I think we're doing just as well now. So I'm open to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford?
Well, I'll just respond to say I'm proposing to leave it more like it is now. This proposal in front of us would switch it to a new system. So my proposal would do away with the vacant position up until the new nominee, which was the goal of this current proposal. But it would put before the council not a choice between the existing member and the new nominee, but just like it is now, an up or down vote on the new nominee. So I'm proposing something that leaves it more like it is now, but fills the gap between the end of the year and when the new council member finds a nominee. I agree it could go either way. Both are very unlikely. It seems to me that putting before the council a choice between the current nominee or a vacant seat really puts the council on the hot seat to come to consensus, as opposed to current member versus new nominee, and then we could have a 3-2 vote that would essentially leave the current member in place over the objections of the appointing council member.
So if I understand you correctly, Councilmember Ford, if one of the council members nominated somebody, and the existing commissioner would retain their position until that nomination is presented to the city council.
Right.
And then if the city council did not approve that nomination, then we would be without a planning commission, either existing or new.
Right. That's right.
So I don't know what that's all.
Well,
because in one situation, you've alienated the existing commissioner, and you have not appointed a new commissioner. Now you have 50 that might be up there.
So
where
can I respond a little bit?
you wouldn't necessarily have that.
Sorry, it looks like Councilmember Sparks.
Councilmember Sparks?
I'm going to say it would solve what I believe that Councilmember Ford's suggestion would solve the problem that we are by far the most likely to encounter, which is that we're unable to find somebody who's willing to serve in a timely manner. And we're unable to vet those people in time to get things going. So this would solve that gap of between when a new person is elected and when they're able to appoint a commissioner without infringing on the right of a new council member to have that choice of who their commissioner would be. It just solves that. I think it does solve, like you said, or somebody said, it's very unlikely for us to have a council not ratify someone, but it is very likely that, because it's happened just now, that we're having trouble filling it in a timely manner. So I think it would solve the most likely problem that we might encounter.
Thank you. Councilmember Hardy? You're muted, Councilmember Hardy.
Sorry. I guess my concern is that we could end up in a situation where we have 3 new council members, each with people, and if one doesn't get ratified for whatever reason, who knows what it is, there could be a situation where then it's like, well, then I'm not going to ratify yours, and I'm not going to ratify yours, and we could end up with 3 vacancies and not be able to proceed. That, you know, like a tit, I hate to say a tit for tat. You know, right now it's generally just one, but we could be in a situation where there's multiples and then do business. That's really my own concern. Either that or I agree with Vice Mayor Landman, either that or we have to go back to where we were before, and that's that it's up to that council member with no ratification. That's really the only way around that. I don't think I've seen a situation yet where we haven't ratified. That's not to say that that could never happen. I don't want the city to not be able to do business because we get into this little, well, you didn't ratify mine, so I'm not going to ratify your, you know, kind of situation. As childish as that might be, as Vice Mayor Landman pointed out, it could get there if it got dysfunctional.
Thank you. I have a question for our city attorney, if I may, Mr. Bachman. In the event that we have a situation where we did not have a quorum on the planning commission, would those have to be presented to the council, or does there have to be a follow-up to it?
In a scenario where the code says that the planning commission is supposed to hear the item, we could have a scenario where an item is stuck at the planning commission until you have a quorum there. But there are mechanisms for the staff to present the items to the council or even treat the council as the planning agency on a temporary basis, while just basically the council would take over the responsibility of the planning commission on a temporary basis if something like that were to occur. So there are mechanisms to deal with that kind of scenario.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions from the council, I will open it up for comments. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Lyman, you had a question?
No, it can wait. That's fine. I'll wait till after public comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does not appear we have any public comment. Am I correct on that, Ms. Burgess?
No public comment at this time.
Okay. I don't see any public comment on this. So I'll bring it back to the council. My personal thoughts on this are that I don't know that it accomplishes a lot. And I do have a concern. Somebody's nominated. They're presented to the council. The council does not approve them. And they're no longer acting. And now we have a rejected nominee. So we still have now we have a position where we have a vacancy.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a brief comment? I don't know if this is going to be helpful, but I just want to comment on something unique about your code. And that is that the planning commissioners serve, their terms coincide with the terms of the individual council members and are at the discretion of the council member who made the original nomination. So the council can't remove, the council itself as a body cannot remove commissioners, but the original person that made the appointment can. Once that council member is no longer on the council, there's no person, there's no entity or person that can remove that commissioner. So that creates a kind of a unique dynamic. And I guess Councilmember Ford's proposal would resolve that problem. But when you have a stalemate situation like Councilmember Ford presented, the council could, that person that was appointed by a prior council member would stay on the council indefinitely, and there would be no mechanism to remove that person. So I just wanted the council to be aware of that, remote scenario, but it's an oddity created by your code that I just want to make you all aware of.
And if a council member resigns mid-term, then that commissioner has the ability to stay on indefinitely?
Hold on, I'm looking.
Because typically with some of the previous transitions, you haven't had that. And we typically haven't had too many issues in filling the same positions. Granted, some of them don't stay very long, but we haven't had too many issues in any facility.
Yeah.
I was saying, Walker picked that up.
Well, the only comment I can make about that is that the code says that the terms of commissioners shall coincide with the terms of the council member who made the original nomination. So I suppose if a council member resigned or their office became vacant, the code says that the term would end. Although the code also acknowledges that the way we're proposing to amend it, that the term would continue until the replacement is appointed.
Or nominated.
Or nominated, depending on the version that's adopted by the council tonight.
Councilman Lemon?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Mr. Bacher for ruining the master plan, for outing the master plan of many council members to remain in position forever. Now that this has been made public, we've ruined this. So I have to laugh. I hope nothing happens to me. Otherwise, Miss Murphy will be doomed to spend the rest of her life on planning commission. So with that frightening realization, I looked at Mr. Ford, and I think you've heard the concerns. I would encourage you, if you can craft a motion that gets what you want and covers some of these concerns, I bet there's openness just to solve this and move forward. Because the good news is there are a few issues with either way we go. So the bottom line, I don't think we can lose. If you feel strongly would like to make a motion, craft something that perhaps encompasses this, and we'll see where the votes go and see if we can move forward. That's the best advice I can share to everybody.
Mr. Mayor, if it's helpful, I could suggest some text that Councilmember Ford could consider.
Certainly.
So at the end of 2.16.20, it says, the last sentence says, terms shall begin on the date of the first meeting of the commission after appointment and shall end upon the city council's consideration of the nomination of a replacement commissioner pursuant to section 2.16.015.
And Mr. Mayor, if it's appropriate, I would like to move that language that the city attorney just read out.
That would be fine.
Consider it done.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Berger?
Councilmember Harvey.
We don't know that we've lost Ms. Berger.
Councilmember Harvey.
Can't hear you. Ms.
Yeah.
Berger, have to do a roll call.
Yeah, Mayor. Seems to have dropped off. I would, before we do a roll call vote, actually one quick question for the attorney. So this would be, this proposed language would remove the, either the removal, it's basically contingent on the presentation of the new nominee to the council, is that correct?
Correct. The current council or current commissioner serves until a nomination is presented to the city council.
Okay. So can I clarify? So if the nominating council member wanted to replace his or her existing nominee, the mechanism to do that would be to nominate a replacement.
Correct. Or he or she could remove, under the terms of the code, the council member that appointed a commissioner has a right to remove that person at any time. And you could also do that by presenting a new nomination to the council.
Well, we have a motion second, a little bit more discussion on this. Would it be more efficient if we were to suggest that a commissioner serve until a new council member is appointed? Could you not hear me on that one? So my suggestion regarding discussion on this would be if we look at that language to allow for a planning commissioner to continue to serve until that time as the appropriate council member determined they wanted to nominate and get appointed to the commission. Versus just having that commissioner not serve after the nomination period.
Mr. Mayor, is your thought that the term would end immediately upon the council maker making the nomination, rather than waiting until it's presented to the city council? That nomination is presented to the city council?
No, it's my position that the term of the commissioner would end upon the ratification of a new council member, not end upon the nomination of a new council member, which is how I understood Councilmember Ford's original position on that.
Well, the way the language that I drafted indicated that that the current commissioner would serve until a new commissioner were nominated and presented to the city council. And at that point, either the council would ratify that nomination of that commissioner, and they would be seated immediately, or if the council did not ratify the nomination, the seat would be immediately vacant.
Councilmember Ford?
Well, Mayor Moore, I think what you're proposing is the city attorney's original language that's in the packet. So that's what we're debating, is do we stick with that, where an existing member serves until a new member is ratified by the council? I'm proposing that instead we switch to a new existing member serves until the council considers a new nominee. which turns the council vote like it is now into an up or down vote on a new nominee, not into a vote between the existing seat holder and the new nominee. So I'm trying to keep the vote of the city council to be an up or down vote of the council member, the new council member's nominee, not a vote between the existing commissioner and the new nominee.
Okay. Councilmember Harvey?
Well, that's interesting that you just said that, Ben, because that was my understanding of the whole point of the ratification, is that it's an up or down on who it is that the council member is putting forward. Nothing to do at all with who is ever in that spot at the current time. The current planning commissioner isn't even brought up. It's really what is brought forward is who that council member wants in that position. So I just feel like this is getting a little bit unclear and complicated, and I think either it is the way it is, or I think we need this to come back. It's just getting too convoluted in my mind.
Would you? Go ahead.
Mayor, sorry, this is Damian. So if obviously there's been a lot of good discussion tonight, and if the council so chooses, I would be happy to work with the city attorney and look at some other language from other cities and council planning commission appointments, and come back with some, given the context of this discussion tonight, some revised language. There's another option.
Vice Mayor Lemon, will you?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest, we've had good discussion. I think we can see both sides have some pluses and minuses. I will admit my opinion's gone back and forth several times in this, so it shows that there's good arguments on both sides. Having said that, we have a nomination, or excuse me, we have a motion put forward. If that fails, for some reason, we can go to our original motion. I suspect we can resolve this quickly, and however it resolves, I think I'll be satisfied personally. I think we all will be. I think we'll have done our job, and if necessary, if this needs to comes back, that would be fine, but I don't know if we really need to do that. I'll listen to my colleagues on that, but it seems like I think we just cast our votes, see where we go, and Cotati will be fine either way, I suspect. So just my thoughts.
Okay, Mr. Bacher, if you'd be kind enough to read what you have down as a motion.
I'm not sure I'm going to say it exactly as I said it before, but the last sentence of 2.16.20 would say, terms shall begin on the date of the first meeting of the commission after appointment and shall end upon the city council's consideration of the nomination of a replacement commissioner pursuant to section 2.16.015.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call on that?
So, Mayor, I will, Lauren's having some audio issues, so I will just go ahead and do the roll call for you. All right, so Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Harvey.
No.
Vice Mayor Landman.
No.
Mayor Moore.
No.
So, all right, so that motion fails 3-2. Do we want to do a motion on the language as is proposed in the packet?
Well, seeing as my microphone's open, through the mayor, if I might, I will move an ordinance to revise the planning commission appointment process to allow for interim continuing service of existing members until new members are appointed, as described in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks,
No.
Councilmember Harvey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lannon,
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 4-1. Thank you.
And I would like to take a 2-minute technical recommend this thing for the way because apparently my
Can't hear you, Mayor Moore.
Okay, you can hear me well? Okay, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess to fix our technical difficulties and come back in at 8:20. Thank you, we'll sign back on. Ms. Burgess, are you back on?
Hi, Mayor Moore. Yes, I am.
I can see your frame highlighted, but I can't hear anything. Oh, there we
Okay,
go.
I will have to get in touch with Damien.
I can hear you now.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to say I can hear Mayor Moore.
Okay.
Oh, then you just heard me muttering to myself. Thank you.
I do it all the time. Is that audio a little bit better?
Much.
Much better.
Yeah, I tried to use my PC, and obviously it's not the best audio quality on there.
Yes, you sound much, much better.
You recovered quickly from whatever was ailing you.
It kind of sounded like you were underwater, which matched your background image very nicely.
We don't want you to get anything, so I'm glad you were able to recover.
Thank you so much. We'll just give it another minute or so for all those others that we said 8:20.
And hopefully we still have Lauren.
Still here.
Yay.
I am looking forward to the day when we can have these in person, if ever that comes.
Don't say it like that.
So it's 8:20, and if we have all the staff present that we need, we can go ahead and reconvene. Lauren, does it look like we have everybody we need here?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And I had a question for Mr. Bacher. We had a attendee that wanted to speak on an issue but couldn't get in technically. What's the protocol if we were to open that back up for a public comment on there, even though we've already voted?
Well, the action has already been taken, but you could certainly take public comment after the action's already been taken. I'm not sure you could. I do not believe you could go back and undo it. You'd have to renotice it in order to reconsider the item. But I'm sorry, I wasn't that clear. You could definitely take public comment on the item.
Okay, I will open it back up for public comment. Ms. Burgess, if you would facilitate that.
Yes, Lisa Moore, go ahead.
Hi, I just, as a planning commissioner for the city of Cotati, I just wanted to weigh in on this item coming from the other side of my house. So, can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay. So I know Steve served for a long time. Steve Onines was under Wendy Skillman, and I would have appreciated that he would have stayed on for a while, just because we did have an action item that came through. I don't know if he would have, and I don't know in that scenario if somebody who serves on the planning commission for a very long time would feel obligated to stay for a while. Or feel, you know, that they have, like I said, an obligation to the city of Cotati. But it would have been nice to have him stay just for a little bit longer to be able to finish out. And his leaving was just kind of abrupt, especially in this day and age when we're doing it all on Zoom. It's always nice, too, to have every planning commissioner known by their city council. And Steve served for a long time, very well served. So that's just my 2 cents as a planning commissioner. It's sometimes we have a lot of agenda items and sometimes we don't. So like I said, it's already been passed, but I just thought you'd like to know from somebody who actually sits on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that our most recent action would address that, if I understand that correctly. So thank you very much. Okay. So now we look at the next item. Appointment of a planning commissioner. And Mr. Obid, will you be presenting this?
Yes, Mayor. I'll prevent this. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and I think now that we're all very well acquainted with Chapter 2.16, we're going to be talking about appointing a planning commission member. And it's, it's kind of funny. I remember last time we had spoken about the Chapter 2.16. It was a very robust, long discussion. It seems like it always elicits a lot of good feedback and interesting discussions, because even last time it was a very long discussion, as I recall. So anyway, so for tonight, Councilmember Sparks has nominated Jonathan Rodriguez to fill the vacant planning commission position. And there's currently one vacant position on the planning commission. If the council ratifies Councilmember Sparks' nomination tonight, the planning commission will have all 5 members seated. And just as background, we did advertise this, and I, in fact, had to re-advertise, as Councilmember Sparks alluded to earlier. And the application from that application process for Jonathan Rodriguez is attached to the staff report. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions, but I think it's fairly straightforward.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from the council? Ms. Sparks, Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say that Jonathan he basically responded to the ad that the city put out. He's extremely enthusiastic about wanting to make a positive difference for his community. I've spoken with him on a couple of occasions, and I feel like he would be a very enthusiastic and good addition to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lyman?
Yeah, I was almost tempted at our last discussion, just for the heck of it, to vote not to ratify, just to see what happens. But all kidding aside, I just wanted to comment to say welcome to our new I believe our new Planning Commissioner Rodriguez, to thank him for stepping up to serve his community. I think it's great to see a new face in the community step up. That always helps make the community a better place. And I just wanted to suggest that when you're new to this, it's a very complex thing. If he has questions, I'm sure any of his colleagues would be happy to spend some time talking with him online to just get a good sense of what's going forward. So with that, I wanted to congratulate him and be happy to support this I'm thinking of other places, Councilmember Sparks' nomination.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lyman. Is Mr. Rodriguez in attendance?
Mayor Moore, I don't see his name in the list. However, we do have one phone call and listener with the last 4 of 1061. Mr. Rodriguez, is that you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you, and good evening. Thank you so much for welcoming me, and I'm very, very excited to be a part of this planning commission and hopefully bring some positive change and some, positive energy.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I have a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
When you talk about positive change and positive energy, what are you envisioning that as?
I'd like to see more affordable housing and be able to welcome anybody that wants to come and live in Sonoma County, especially Cotati. It's a wonderful small city filled with a lot of wonderful people. And I moved up to Sonoma County from Marin about 9 years ago, and Cotati was the first place I lived. And I moved around a little bit in Sonoma County. And back in 2018, I came back to Cotati, and I just love it. Everybody's so friendly, and I love downtown. Everybody comes together, and I love all the events, and I think that brings a lot of positivity to the community, and it's very welcoming.
And you have not necessarily served on any previous civic organizations or anything like that in your past?
I have not.
Okay, the reason I ask these questions is because I think that the Planning Commission is a very important role that's played in the city. I typically like to see people in there that have had some previous engagement and understand what the commitment may be on that. And so that's where some of my questions are coming from on that. Ms. Sparks?
I'd like to state that when I was speaking to Mr. Rodriguez in the past, he expressed that he's been involved with homeowners association boards in the past, is very familiar with the workings of long technical meetings and understands what that entails, and that made me really feel comfortable appointing him.
Thank you so much. Any further questions or comments? If not, then I will go ahead and open this up to further public comment. If anyone has any further comment on there?
As a reminder to our attendees, you dial *9 if you're dialing in, or use your raise hand icon. Mayor Moore, at this time I see no public comment.
Thank you so much. With no further discussion, I would be looking for a motion on this.
I would like to move to ratify the nomination of Councilmember Sparks of Jonathan Rodriguez to the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to second that unless Councilmember Sparks would prefer to be the second.
You can go right ahead. Thank you so much.
In that case, I'll be happy to second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Harvey. Yes. Councilmember Sparks. Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lemon.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
No. And I caveat that no vote with, I would just like to, for future reference, see a little bit more engagement and involvement in the community for the Planning Commission. But I do appreciate the effort of Mr. Rodriguez to submit his name for that, and I welcome him onto the Planning Commission. So thank you. Okay. And now we will move on to information update and presentation of the final design for the City of Cotati Gateway Sign Program.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. This is Noah House, Community Development Director for the City of Cotati. I just want to give a brief introduction. As identified, this is an informational presentation to the council. No decisions will be made this evening. However, we will welcome your input. The Gateway Sign Project is an extension of the Wayfinding Sign Project, which grew out of policies in the General Plan and the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. And I would welcome John Bozio, our sign consultant for both of these projects, to conduct the presentation. He's from Merge, and he has been asked to provide the informational update to the City Council as we move forward in the design process towards finalizing and making a decision. And with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
He's presenting from Pennsylvania.
Yes. You can go to the next slide. So thank you all for having me tonight. Again, this is John Bozio from Merge. For those who are not familiar with the work we've been doing in Cotati over the past several years, we designed and planned the wayfinding sign, bicycle and pedestrian wayfinding system you see along the trails This project sort of becomes sort of an extension of that. That project also has a second phase coming with some kiosk elements that we've been working with Noah and his group on as well. So we were asked to then sort of extend that project into the Gateway program. And that's what we've been working on. That previous project had a lot of public input that led to that design, and we've tried to bring some of those elements into this as well. I'll talk a little bit about materials and that sort of thing as we get into it. If you go to the next slide. So there are, as we looked at sort of locations, and I'm just going to sort of go through that real briefly, there were 5 sort of major or primary locations for gateway elements, and then you see there numbered 1 through 5, and you see little red dots. There are another 4 or 5 locations that are sort of secondary ways into town that will get sort of more of a simple sort of post and panel sign. You'll see that as we go through it. If you could flip through each one. Each location gives a little bit of a different sort of environment, clearance, right-of-way that we've had to look at. So when you see the designs, we've developed 3 different sizes and configurations, and then based on what is available at that particular spot, we will install the appropriate sign or decide on what the appropriate sign size should be there. So this is the number 1 location, which is along Highway 116. You go to the next slide. This is along Commerce Boulevard. It's not going to be a wall. That was just sort of the area that was available there. There's also now I think there's a trailhead sign and some other trail sign that sort of identify that portion. I'll go to the next slide. This is along West Sierra and at Pine Lane. Go to the next one. Old Redwood Boulevard and Eucalyptus Avenue. So there were just some different areas there that something could fit. And then the last one. There's an existing sign here on East Cotati and it's Sunflower Drive. So these are the locations we're looking at. If it wasn't for a pandemic, I probably would be out there site checking them right now. So that's sort of one of our next steps as we go through this. But just based on that information that we gathered, we started to put together some design elements for that. I should mention that we have been trying to coordinate with the branding effort that was going on as well. I'll talk a little bit about that. We've designed the system flexible enough that as that moves forward, there's opportunity to add that to the system, and you'll see that as we go through it. The next slide. We've introduced another material into the overall design. We did try to keep with the overall sort of trail materials, but I know when we did the trail project with the public input, there's some desire to have Core-10, like Core-10 metal, steel incorporated. With the trail signs, it was very limited sign types, so that opportunity didn't present itself as much, but we did try to bring that into the gateways, which you'll see in a moment. There is stonework that we're incorporating into the trails that we are bringing into this as well, and different options. So there's 3 options. Next slide. This is option A. And in all 3 options, you will see 3 different sort of configurations. There's the first go to the next slide. You could zoom in there. You'll see the first configuration on the left is where we have enough sort of horizontal clearance to have a horizontal type sign. The typeface that we're using there is the typeface that was working typeface for the brand identity. The second version there is a vertical version when we have very limited room, and the third size is on the sort of secondary or when we have really minimal amount of room to include a sign. You'll see on all the options that last one, that configuration is similar to the configuration we did for the parking lot signs, that double post with the panel on it That seemed to be a real favorable sort of configuration, so we've incorporated that on most of those smaller panels. The material here would be the Core 10 steel and with the letters cut out, and then we've incorporated the stonework similar to what we have on the trail system. You'll see on this also, which are sort of questions we're still putting out there, is that it says Cotati, California. You'll see on the next one it just says welcome. You could put an established date. If there's other messaging, you don't have to put California. If there's other messaging that we want to establish on there are certainly discussions that we'll continue to have. But this was 3 panels, sort of metal horizontal panels with the letters cut out above. We were trying to keep everything sort of very natural, material, timeless, simple, not getting caught up in sort of over stylizing it. If you go to the next one. This is option 2, and you can even go to the next slide to zoom in there. This one has, again, stonework on it. We're bringing in some wood to match the, similar to what we utilized on the trail system. In this case, the Cotati letters are really thick letters, some real substance to them, and then the returns of those letters would be painted green. And then the Core 10 just acts as a backdrop to the signs, to the letters, so those letters will really pop the white against the darker background. And then we have the we welcome. We're just including welcome on that. And then you see the smaller size panel, again, is that configuration from the parking lot signs. In all these cases, you can see that if Cotati ends up with a mark, say a contained mark inside a hexagon, which I think is sort of the predominant shape, we've always left room on the signs that could be added, because we've been sort of out in front of that effort and trying to keep moving along, but at the same time realizing that we may have to add something to that. So in both the first one and this one, there's an opportunity to add that back on, and even that last sign, there's opportunity up in the upper portion of it to add a logo. You go to the third option. So this is option C. Option C brings in a little bit more of the metalwork that we had in the trail system, so we're sort of repeating that language. We always saw the gateways and the trail system. I think in the first 2, it's sort of I would say it's its first cousin, and this one is sort of a brother-sister version. As you can see the pictures at the top, it brings in that color palette, so you have a much more consistent graphic language across signage in town. You could go into the next slide. Zoom in there. Again, stonework, bringing in the wood accent. Again, the dimensional letters with the word Cotati, is trying to get that as large as we can. And then the metal pattern that you see in the trailhead signage is another element that metal work that we've brought into it. And then the last sign, I don't think that PDF is showing quite right, but there's the pattern drops back behind the word Cotati. So those are the 3 options that we've been working with. We had some different versions prior to this, and they've all been tweaked down to these 3, and we felt like it was a good time to start to get feedback from the council on these. We've always gotten really good feedback in Cotati on all the design work that we've done. And our next steps are to take that, sort of land on vet out some of the comments and land on a final design, and then look at each of the locations and decide what the sizes and configurations may be. They may have to get adjusted a little bit based on real world conditions. So with that, I guess we'll take any questions. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I don't really have anything to add. I would just say, we really asked John to build on all the feedback and input that was gathered through the Wayfinding Sign Committee and all the public engagement that previously went into this effort, which all occurred prior to my coming to the city. And so the whole goal was just to build on that, incorporate some of the elements of the branding work that's been done, but allow him to move forward with getting a second phase, so to speak, of this sign effort to kind of wrap it up as we head into the next fiscal year. And so we wanted to show those to the council and the community and allow folks to start to provide some feedback on these designs as they get finalized.
Thank you, Mr. Housh. Thank you, Mr. Bosio,
Yes.
for your presentation on that. With that information, I'll bring it back to the council and see if they have any comments or questions.
I do, Mayor Moore.
Councilmember Ford, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll save comments till after public comment, but I just wanted to ask about the process, Director Housh, as you see it. Is this there's not an equivalent to the wayfinding committee that's helping with this project, right? So this is the one opportunity for elected body feedback, or is planning commission looking at it? What's the process, and is there like a survey to get public feedback, or what do you...
You are correct. There is not another wayfinding sign committee, and so we were hoping to. There was an extensive amount of input that was gathered through that process, and so we were hoping, given the constraints of today, to leverage that input into these designs, which is what Mr. Bosio has done for us. We have not considered going back out with a survey or any of those efforts. However, anything that we want to hear from the council tonight on kind of suggested ways that we should work to select the final design, and then also any members of the public who are participating, we'd love to hear feedback from them as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for asking that question about feedback. I think it might be helpful to get some form of feedback, be that, some kind of poll on our website or something like that, just to, see if people lean one way or another, kind of open to all of them. But I'm just, one of many, many people. So I would like to hear from folks. Secondly, I'm hoping that when they install these, that someone will take care to make sure that they're level and standing upright. I know that we have some of I see Vice Mayor Landman shaking his head. We have some that from the previous wayfinding that they're just not straight. And so I'm hoping that someone will take care with a level to make sure that they're standing upright, because that's a little disappointing to have a beautiful new sign and have it not be level. And then thirdly, I did not see list, and it was kind of small, so I couldn't really tell. There is also a City of Cotati, entering City of Cotati sign on Cypress, and the poor thing is probably close to 100 years old, and you can barely see that there's anything on it. So I'm hoping that also gets on the list, because it's looking pretty shabby. And that's all my questions at this point.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. Vice Mayor Landman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm surprised how many years have passed since we began this process. I believe I was actually mayor, because I do remember the meetings, and we had numerous meetings. We had robust public meetings with really a good amount of attendance, and most importantly, a lot of participation. And I wanted to share that. I believe Mr. Ford might have been there if memory serves. I know Ms. Sparks wasn't. So I wanted them just to have a sense that, and anybody who's listening, one of the things we did is we didn't sit up in the council. We all went and sat together as a group in the audience, and we went through every design element, and we had multiple different iterations and all the different potential sizes. And that included these gateway signs as well. So what you see tonight is kind of the final outgrowth of what they presented us, suggestions that came from the community that they took back and iterated one more time, brought to us again, and they took even more direction and brought back this, in theory, last time. So that was the background process. It was very thorough, and I think had some pretty sufficient input from the public. Having said that, anything to do with art or design, you'll never find consensus. I know that. So I have comments. I have my comments prepared this, but I'll wait certainly to after public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? I do have a question for Mr. Bocio. On that third slide, you indicated that you thought that that style was closest to the existing styles that we have implemented recently. Is that correct?
That one does have we brought in the color green. So it has a little bit more color in it. It also has the blue color, where the option B, A and B rely a little bit more on material. They still fit within the overall family, but with the use of color, I thought that it sort of matches it even more.
Thank you. So at this point, it's an advisement. If we have no further questions from the council for staff or Mr. Bocio, I will open it up for public comment if there's anyone interested in commenting on this.
Marjorie Crumpshares, go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm strongly in favor of getting more public comment, and I have a personal favorite of the examples that we were shown. I really like the third design very much. But I'm thinking that this would be a great way to involve the community once again. Perhaps having an announcement on the board outside the fire hall, and then using our park as a place where people can come and look at the designs and cast their vote. So I'm all for doing that, and I'll put a personal pitch in for the third design early. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crumpshares.
Kimberly Moffitt, go ahead.
Ms. Moffett, you have your hand raised, and it looks like you're on mute.
Then you didn't hear anything that I just said. It was amazing, I promise. So sorry about that. What I wanted to say is I also agree that public surveys would be wonderful. I think that you have done an amazing job at doing the housing surveys recently through Facebook and online. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in my vote for option 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's not appear. Thank you, Ms. Bridges.
Public comment.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the council on this. Vice Mayor Lemon?
All right, yeah, real quickly, let's just go through and give the feedback that was requested by staff. First of all, like all the designs, they essentially are iterations of things that most of the public liked. With that, I have some favorites. I like number 1 and 2 personally the best. I lean personally towards number 1. I find it clean, simple. I suspect number 2 might be slightly better I remember many people in Cotati didn't lean as strongly as I did to clean modern lines, so I have to keep that in mind. So I would be happy with either number 1 or 2. As I mentioned for number 1, I like that it's clean and simple. I would prefer to see welcome instead of California, because I think that's a wonderful thing to have on our entry signs. I really like that in the other ones. Number 2, it's very good, maybe a little blocky, but it does kind of match what we have, and it does have a little bit of the green to it in a few places, which does tie it in with our trail stuff. Number 3, I like the palette very much, but I think the design's really, really busy. I suspect it would look dated perhaps quickly. I'm not sure how the metalwork really works out, and I'm not sure if the design, bringing that hex shape in the back of the post and panel gateway, really works ideally. So I think the other two signs are simpler, clearer, and reminded me a little bit more of what I heard from the rest of the public. So personally, I love number one. Number two may be best, and I'd be happy to see either of them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lemon. Councilmember Ford.
Sure. First of all, I think I agree with Vice Mayor Landman that this is part of the wayfinding project, which included really extensive public involvement and workshops back when we could do that kind of thing. So while I think that perhaps a survey akin to the housing surveys might be a really good move here to invite people to give both, votes, but also some open commentary to comment on the aspects that they like and don't like, would be a good opportunity. I'm not interested in recreating the wayfinding sign program because we did that and it was a ton of work. So I'd love it if you could come up with some process for people to have some input on these specific signs, but not try to recreate that program. On the aesthetics of the designs, I like all the designs fine. I'm worried that the color palette in number 3 at that scale is too much of those colors. Those are great on the trail signs. There's small bits of those colors, but that's a lot of those colors when you scale them up to 10-foot long signs or whatever. And the only other, I agree with Vice Mayor Landman about welcome as opposed to California. If people get here and don't know they're in California, we're in trouble. But we want them to know they're welcome. And the only other thing that I have real concerns about is the lowercase font on 1 and 3 that come across as cutesy, and I really worry that'll get dated fast. I know it's a current design fad, but it's not representative of the other wayfinding signs, so I worry about that piece. Thanks.
Just as a comment on the typeface on option 2, which is the lowercase, that was the typeface that some of the early branding elements included, so that's why it was there. And then option 1, we didn't use it, we just have all uppercase. That's where it came from.
Option B is the uppercase, A and C are the lowercase.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all the input. It's interesting because in option 3 on the presentation, it looks different than the printed versions that we got in our packets. The colors seem to blend in a little bit more in the printed version. On the version in the presentation, it seems like Cotati gets lost in there, so it's a little bit hard for me to determine, what the final sign would actually look like if we went with that. It did feel a little bit busy. I kind of liked the varying colors in there, and the reason that I preferred option 1 over 2 is that there was a little bit more color in option 1. At least in the tall signs, it added the green color, and I thought that kind of brought that in. I was not as concerned with the lowercase. I kind of thought it was really very simple and like that, but I also think that it would be worthwhile to put out some kind of, these are our finals, and get a little bit of feedback. I know there's been a lot, but since we're down to the very last step, just even if people will feel like they have a little bit of buy-in to it, if you will, if they get, one last chance at voting, if you will, on what the final is. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. I do have a question. Can we go back to that last slide that did show the color palette differential on option 3? And that's the one you were referring to, Councilmember Harvey, that you thought the colors were a little bit more vivid on there? Or?
Yeah, it seems like on that what you're seeing is the white popping out versus in the printed version, that white isn't popping out. You're really seeing, more of the green, and the kind of hexagons are kind of muted, if you will. And that's what it wasn't clear to me, especially in that third sign.
Yeah, I think sometimes on the screen when you make it a PDF, it sometimes plays with the line weights, and I think probably with your printout, which is a little bit more legible, is probably more accurate than what we originally had.
Yeah, because I think that in the one in the printout, you can see Cotati a lot better. In this particular one, Cotati gets lost.
Yeah, we'll grab a file and we recognize that wouldn't be that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I think it just has to do with the PDF.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So, Councilmember Sparks, did you want to weigh in on this, or?
I think it would be a great idea to do. Everything I would say has been said already, but yeah, just to have the public have one last opportunity to buy in by casting their vote, I think would be a really neat thing. And I like all of the designs, and I have a terrible eye for design, so I'm not the right person to ask.
Thank you very much. So it sounds like there's been a couple of suggestions that potentially, Noah, if we could do something along the lines of a 10-day window on the website, on our city website maybe, and on Facebook to allow people to vote on that. I don't know what kind of a time frame you're looking at, Mr. Bocio, where we would implement these.
We don't have a specific time frame. I think we're working on budgets that you would then get into your budget cycle and figure out which, how you're going to move forward. So we can put together the survey, Noah, and give you a SurveyMonkey link, and then you can post that on the website for 10 days, and I think that would be just fine.
Mr. House, are you okay with that?
Absolutely. I was just going to provide a little brief summary of what I heard. Everyone very much appreciates the past process, but also there's an expectation that we go back out to give the community one more chance now that we've kind of finalized and we've coalesced around some designs. There seems to be kind of some strong council leaning towards number 1 and 2, but no, obviously decisions are made, and I really appreciate your all flexibility in not trying to get 5 people to decide on one design. And then there's some direction to just watch the quality as we move forward with installation, making sure that those inspections are done and that they're not signed off until everything meets the standards. And generally, folks definitely don't need California on the Cotati sign, so welcome is the preferred.
And don't forget Cypress.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I noted that.
Councilmember Sparks?
I was going to say, don't forget Cypress.
Terrific. Well, it sounds like we have a consensus on that, and that's giving you enough direction, Mr. House. Terrific. And yeah, I wouldn't keep that open too long on that website, because otherwise, you'll have way more opinion than we can imagine based on the information that's already been presented way back. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Mr. Bocio.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we would move on to our regular agenda item on the consideration of a resolution to approve a transfer agreement and escrow instructions directed to transfer 0.67 acre city-owned Jamie Lane. Is that you, Mr. House?
It is Mayor Moore. Thank you, sir, and council members. Just be really brief. I don't have a PowerPoint or anything for this one. You all have heard a lot about Jamie Lane recently, but as identified, the resolution before the council would formally approve transferring the Jamie Lane property, which is a 0.67 acre city-owned lot, to the Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County, and also provide instructions for that transfer to occur. Just briefly, in 2009, the property was purchased through redevelopment funds, expressly for the intention of affordable housing. It was purchased for $275,000. And in 2010, the city entered into a negotiation agreement with the Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County to develop the property and allocated some funding to essentially seed money to allow them to move forward with beginning that process. In June of 2020, the council approved subdivision of the property into 5 lots to develop them with single-family homes, deed restricted to moderate income levels or below. And the council also included a local preference policy. So look for that in other affordable housing agreements moving forward. We will be incorporating that, or at least recommending that the council incorporate that. And then in December of 2020, the council approved the affordable housing affordability agreement and locking in those 2 things that I just mentioned. And through all of these past actions, there's never been a formal direction from the council approving the transfer of the property to the Housing Land Trust. So it was always implied, it was always understood, but never had formal direction been granted through an action to the city staff to move forward with that. And so this item is essentially just doing that, as well as because of the relatively complicated recordation process for all of the agreements. The escrow instructions are included in that agreement, and we thank the city attorney's office for their assistance and expertise in providing that together. So given that, it's recommended that the city council adopt a resolution to transfer the Jamie Lane property to the Housing Land Trust, allowing staff to have the final, approving the agreement in form, allowing staff to move forward with any minor modifications that need to occur as the various legal bodies provide their comments, and city manager would be staff tasked with that authority. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have it.
Thank you, Mr. Hush. Do we have any questions from the council? Doesn't look like I see any questions at this point. From 2004 to 2020, I don't know why we're in such a rush on this. With that in mind, and this is an action item, so I will open this up to public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. For our attendees and those that are calling in, please dial *9. Otherwise, use your raise hand icon. And Mayor Moore, that will end public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. With that in mind and no further discussion on this, I would certainly entertain a motion.
Mayor Moore, I would like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the transfer agreement and escrow instructions to direct the transfer of 0.67 acres of city-owned Jamie Lane property to the Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County for the development of 5 affordable single-family homes. Yay!
And I would be happy to second that, Mayor Moore.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lehman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes. Thank you. Let the record reflect that's a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Hausch.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
if I might, I wanted to suggest a change to the agenda for tonight that just occurred to me. I noticed looking at our participants, we have a number of people waiting to participate on item 12E. I suspect if we were to move 12E before 12D, this would allow them to make their case and then sign off to allow us to do our deliberations. And seeing as they're public officials who already attend innumerable Zoom meetings, if we can make this shorter for them, I think that would be a valuable thing to do.
Well, you're certainly much kinder than me, Vice Mayor Lehman. I figure if they want these appointments, they're used to waiting. So,
whatever you think's best, I wanted to suggest it.
I would not have a problem with that. If we have a second on that to change that agenda order.
I second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to change the agenda order. Ms. Burgess, would you kindly give us a roll call?
Councilmember Harvey.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lehman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
I suppose, yes. Thank you. So with that in mind, we'll move on to our regular agenda item on the nomination for regional commissions and committees on behalf of Sonoma County Mayors and Council Members Association and City Select Committee. Mr. Obid, were you going to facilitate this, or?
Yes, Mayor. And I believe we have a presentation too. I wonder if you can put that up. But just to get going here, as way of background, I think everyone knows this, but the City of Cotati is a member of both the Sonoma County Mayors and Council Members Association, as well as the Sonoma County City Selection Committee. The mayors of each community serve on the board for the Mayors and Council Members Association, and also on the City Selection Committee. So the process tonight is to, and I should say both of these bodies appoint certain members to regional groups, such as, as you see in the packet, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and so forth. There's a variety of regional appointments that happen through these two bodies. And the process tonight is really to give the mayor direction as the primary voting delegate of both of these bodies. That would also be cleared up by the vice mayor as the alternate if the mayor was not available for the meeting. Is coming up February 11th. Is the meeting for these nominees to be voted on. So, Lauren, can you turn to the next slide, please? I just covered this. Next slide, please. So, so basically what you're doing tonight is you're giving the mayor, by motion, direction on how to vote. And Lauren, next slide, please. All right, so here's the summary. You'll notice, and you probably noticed in the packet before the meeting, that a lot of these positions that are up for vacancies, or vacancies are being replaced, a lot of them are just one position, one nominee. So, I would suggest as we kind of go through this table might be a good guide. And there's two of these. This is for the City Selection Committee. There's a separate one for the Mayors and Council Members Association. And my suggestion is just to probably focus on the ones where there's only one position and more than one nominee interested in serving. For the City Selection Committee, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is one position, one nominee. Golden Gate Bridge District has one position and two nominees interested. LAFCO is one, and our own Mark Landman is the nominee for that one. MTC has one position, but 4 people interested in filling that position. Nothing for the RAND board, and nothing for the Sonoma County Oversight Board Committee. So, at least for the City Selection Committee, the two regional bodies that have more interest and positions are the Golden Gate Golden Gate Bridge District and MTC. So, my suggestion is we just start with those two, unless there's an interest in talking about the ones where there's one position, one nominee, but I think those are probably straightforward.
I think Mr. Obid will go with your suggestion at this point, and Councilmember Harvey.
Have to unmute first. I just want to point out that on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and I think we got hung up on this at mayors and council members last time, that 3 names are submitted by the City Selection Committee. And I think we got messed up last time because some of the cities went ahead and submitted 3, and then the City Selection Committee dealt with it, and some cities only did 1, and there was a lot of, kind of things that happened during that. So my suggestion on that one would be for us to send 3 and rank them, but that's just my suggestion.
Thank you very much. Any other comment regarding this from the council?
Okay. Just Councilmember Ford, I just wanted to ask about the order of taking public comment and council discussion and how you're going to handle that.
it's interesting because we haven't even really discussed each one. Well, we can discuss what we would like to present, and then bring it to public comment. Or in this particular case, we might open up comment if there are any of these candidates there that would like to make some sort of a presentation. I would be open to that as well.
Yes, through the mayor, I'd like to suggest going with your latter suggestion, Mr. Mayor. We have people here who'd like to very quickly make a case for these positions. We could allow them to do that. Typically, people do show up and do that, and then they could go back to their evenings and we could deliberate afterwards. So that might be probably the best and most typical course of action. And then, of course, open it to full public comment afterwards as well.
Thank you. I don't recollect having this many candidates present at previous meetings where we've made these suggestions, so I think it's kind of interesting. But I will go ahead and open it up to the public for any of the candidates that would like to make a comment at this point.
Mayor Dominic Popoli, go ahead.
Mayor Landman, Vice Mayor, wow, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Landman, and Council's Dominic Popoli, Mayor of Windsor, and the current Chair of Mayors and Council Members. So I'm coming today to ask for your support. I've tried to reach out to all of you at some point. Quick reasons why I think I'd be a great fit for Sonoma County. I will hit the ground running. I have strong relationships already with the directors from Sonoma, Marin, and San Francisco. So I think that's going to be important as far as making sure our voice is heard. So secondly, my kind of big priority here is I want to make sure that we still have a strong, funded, well-functioning transportation system with Golden Gate. So I think the big one for us is our young fledgling smart train system is already having issues because of this year, and I think it's really important that we continue to have a strong ferry connection so that usage will continue to increase. And that's all, obviously, in addition, also supporting the bus system and dealing with ongoing financial challenges that the district will see in the next couple of years. So I'm here to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Susan Adams, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the members of the council for moving this up. Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Landman, members of the City Council. I speak to this public comment to ask for your support for my application to serve in the member position on the Association of Bay Area Governments Executive Board, representing Sonoma County mayors and council members. As you're probably aware, since 1969, the state of California has required each local government to plan for its share of the state's housing needs for people of all income levels. Through the regional housing needs application process, every local jurisdiction in the Bay Area is assigned a number of housing units representing its share of the state's housing needs for an 8-year period. The California Department of Housing and Community Development identifies the total number of homes for each region in California, the ones that they must plan for in order to meet the housing needs of the people at all income levels. The total number of housing units from HCD is separated into 4 income categories, very low income, all the way up to market housing rate. And ABAG is responsible for developing that methodology. That's the committee that I've been sitting on. Bay Area municipalities are responsible for planning, zoning, and approving a combined 441,176 new homes between 2023 and 2030. And just to give you a little perspective, that's up from 135. That's up 135% required during the same RETA period that covered from 2015 to 2022. In September 2020, after a year of meetings, the Housing Methodology Committee proposed the methodology referred to as Option A, High Opportunity Areas and Emphasis in Job Proximity to the ABAG Executive Board. As I mentioned in my application letter, and when speaking to all of you, I served on the Rohnert Park Planning Commission for 14 years, 5 terms as the chair, prior to being elected to the City Council in 2018. I began serving on the ABAG Planning Commission in the spring of 2019 and was soon appointed by the county to serve on the Housing Methodology Committee. In conclusion, if I'm appointed to represent Sonoma County mayors and council members, I promise to remember that I represent the people in the cities and towns of Sonoma County to ABAG, not the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
Ariel Kelly, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Moore and Vice Mayor Landman, members of the Cotati City Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Ariel Kelly, and I am a City Council member for the City of Healdsburg to the north. I am seeking the appointment as the member position to the Association of Bay Area Governments, ABAG, Executive Committee. While I am a new council member, I am not new to this role or land use planning. Prior to being on council, I served as a Sonoma County Planning Commissioner. And as you know, we oversee planning and land use decisions countywide, including honoring the urban growth boundaries and making sure that our land use and housing planning for the county is in conjunction with the goals and objectives of each of the 9 cities. I'm a land use attorney. I have practiced law, and I've worked in San Francisco in regional planning efforts actually since I staffed the ABAG back in 2003 when I was in law school. So my experience and time in working in housing planning and the important balance between jobs, economic development, transit, and housing is really critical in how we look to plan for the future of our region. I am a mom of a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I think about the future and our land use often, and I think about the balance that we need to strike in terms of where we build housing and how we do it in a way that is both environmentally conscious, that we're not building housing where we don't have jobs and we're not building housing where we don't have transit, because it's going to lead to a negative quality of life for those folks with housing that they have to then get in cars to drive long distances for jobs. And so I think it's really important that we look holistically at planning. As a council member representing a small city, I understand that not everyone has the same goals and objectives in terms of growth. And I think we need to be mindful of that while also knowing that we are looking at massive growth across the Bay Area. And I'm excited and eager to play a leading role in that. I have a number of long-standing relationships with members of the ABAG Executive Committee, and we'll be able to hit the ground running and leverage those relationships to make sure that Sonoma County has a voice at the table, and that I will be open and accessible for all of you and a strong communicator back to make sure that you know what's happening with ABAG and that there are no surprises like what happened to us last week at a midnight meeting of ABAG when both Windsor and Healdsburg were blindsided by a last-minute decision that we were completely unaware of that ABAG was making that would be drastically impacting our cities. So I just want you to know that I would be a voice for Cotati as well as the rest of the county, and would be eager to have your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelly.
Thanks, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Cloverdale? Oh, thank you. All right. Well, good evening. I think you have received my letter that I submitted earlier today for public comment, and so I'm not going to go on too long, but I did submit it, just not being aware of how long your meeting might go tonight. I am requesting reappointment to Ag and Open Space, where I've served for the last 4 years. For some of you on the council know I've been very active on that committee on behalf of all cities, and we now have a new voting system that I helped implement through the Board of Supervisors for matching grants that impact urban parks and benefit us all. I'm also asking for appointment tonight and your support behind me going to the Board of Supervisors for MTC. It's something that I've been interested in very actively for the last 2 years. As many of you know, Sebastopol and Sonoma are the 2 cities that cannot serve on the SMART board. And as an active commuter, I feel very strongly about a lot of transportation issues that are faced by the 9 Bay Area counties. I also went for this appointment 2 years ago during the CASA debate, and unfortunately it was not appointed at that time, so this isn't something I just decided to do a few months ago, but something I've been working on for a number of years. I really appreciate having Cotati's full support as another small city, and would just let you know that I would work with all our elected representatives to bring home money to our county, and also I have an open door policy I've reached out to many of you on the council about this appointment and my passion about it, and you know that the door swings both ways. You can always call me with any concerns or how I can speak on your behalf if I were appointed to this position. So thanks for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Hinton. Do we have any other comments from the public at this time?
Mayor Moore, that ends public comment.
Thank you. I will bring it back to the council, and then upon our conversations, I can open it back up to the public. So, any questions or direction that the council would like to proceed with?
Are you going to go down each item? Is that how?
I thought we might do that and take each one at a time, and I think we can start with the easiest.
Okay.
So do we have any direction on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, other than Ms. Barrett from Petaluma?
I think that
No.
Mr. Barrett will do a fine job for us.
Okay. And then I did have a question for Mr. Bacher, I guess. Once we come to a consensus on these particular positions, I guess I'm obligated to vote that way?
I think it depends on what the particular statute says. Typically, these responsibilities are given to the mayor. Some of them are given to the mayor directly. So you could exercise your independent judgment, but if the city council gave you direction, you have to be doing that at your own peril, I suppose.
I just guess in light of the Electoral College, I just wanted to make sure where I was able to go and not go on there. Okay, so we have Ms. Barrett for the Bay Area Air Quality. The other single appointment on that particular city selection committee is for the local agency formation. We have one position, Councilman Vice Mayor Landman. Any objection to this?
I have no objections. I think it'll be good that he'll finally get an actual commission seat rather than an alternate seat. I think he's done an excellent job. Correct me if I'm wrong, Council Member or Vice Mayor Landman. You've done a great job for us and have been waiting very patiently to finally make it to the big table.
It's actually been a wonderful process. I have been an alternate city representative for 10 years, but LAFCO's really a pretty wonderful little organization in that they have structured this in a way that alternates are treated very close to regular sitting members. You sit at the kids' table, as we like to call it, but you're allowed to speak, participate in deliberations, and sometimes as an alternate, if you choose your words right and have the right timing, you can actually move the discussion. The only caveat is, of course, you're not allowed to vote. So that has been a very rewarding experience, but yes, I'm looking forward and would like very much to spend my last few years in LAFCO sitting as a full city representative for all of you.
I think that Vice Mayor Landman should get to go to the adult table.
Thank you. Hearing no objection, we will go with Vice Mayor Landman. And that's it on the single ones for the City Selection Committee appointments. Let's go back to the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District 2-year term. Two candidates, Mr. Fapoli and Mr. Gudice. Any comments or suggestions regarding those?
I would like to recommend that we go with Dominic Popoli.
And I'll chime in to say, from the two letters, I thought that Mayor Fapoli made a stronger case for his commitment to the responsibilities of the Bridge Highway and Transportation District, so I'd also support that.
Through the chair, if I might.
Absolutely.
I have been contacted by both members, both Mayor Fapoli as well as Mayor Giudice. I've known them both for some years and worked with them. I'm giving my support tonight to Mayor Giudice. I've worked with them both. Mr. Giudice has shown me attention to detail and dependability that I think would be very valuable here, and that is where I indicated my support's going, so that's where I will be voting tonight.
Councilmember Sparks?
I was sort of waiting to hear from what the other more experienced council members had to say on this one because I have great respect for both people and I think they both do an amazing job. So I would go along with whatever the rest of the council's consensus is.
Thank you. I think that both would be excellent candidates on there. I do have a concern that Golden Gate transportation does not even go as far as Windsor. So my inclination is to be more of having a representative that might be actually part of that transit's route, not discounting the ferry, but when you look at the bus service, we don't even go that far up to Windsor. I think we believe we just go up to northern Santa Rosa at this point. So we now have 2 and 2. So based on some of that information.
There you go, Laura.
I'd like to congratulate Councilmember Sparks on her ascension to Joe Manchin level status.
Happy to be the West Virginia of Cotati, I believe. I would like to ask for a little more discussion on what is the role of the person on this board in terms of advocating for our particular region of the county, because that is, having the mayor of our neighboring city was a point in Mayor Giudice's favor. But I'd like to understand to what extent that's going to be important in this role versus somebody who is just going to advocate for the county as a whole. If anyone can speak to that.
Councilmember Harvey, were you going to address that or no?
No, I wasn't, but maybe we could ask some input from Mayor Fapoli on that, since he is familiar with that position and has been in depth in finding more about it.
Mr. Fapoli, you are welcome to comment on there if you would feel so inclined.
So, Councilmember Sparks, your question is the importance of how close your representative lives.
Whoops, you're muted.
Given Mayor Moore's concern that the transit doesn't go all the way to Windsor, I wanted to hear a little bit more elaboration on that. Yes.
Sure, of course. Thank you. Well, I think first and foremost for me, the most important thing, aspect, if I'm being selfish about Sonoma County, is that we have a strong connection to our new smart train system. The reality is that it's already suffering tremendously because of ridership due to COVID. And we have to maintain a strong connection in Larkspur with Golden Gate Transit and the ferry system in order for SMART to have a chance at having decent ridership again. So I think that absolutely affects all of us. Windsor's getting SMART this year for the first time, and I want to make sure that both agencies are well funded. With regard to the bus system, the reality is that it's the only real way for anybody to get to the city if they have to for work or school and they don't have their own transportation. So yes, you do actually have to take a connecting bus from downtown Windsor to Santa Rosa, but then you can get to the city. So that's kind of why it does affect Windsor as well. But I'll be representing the entire county.
Thank you, Mayor Fapoli. With that, I'll bring it back to the council for some direction on there.
Could we move on to the other positions to give me a little more time to think, and then we can come back to that at the end? Would that be acceptable?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next position on that would be for MTC. We have 4 candidates, of which we should vote on 3 of them. I don't know that we need to rank them, but we could based on Councilmember Harvey's suggestion. Councilmember Ford?
Well, I just want to comment. I know that Councilmember Harvey suggested that we go along with the requirement that the City Selection Committee forward 3 to the Board of Supervisors. Several of the other cities have decided to only forward 1 name, and there's not a requirement that we send 3 to the City Selection Committee. So I think it's an open question whether we do 1, 2, or 3. And if we do three, I think it would behoove us to rank them if we want to have significant input.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lyman.
Yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Ford on this. We have to remember this came out with all the disaster at CASA that we faced last time, and the discovery that while historically we had sent one name forward to the mayors and council members, and the supervisors had selected a name, when looking at the legality of it, it is clear that we're required to send three names, and the supervisors get to choose from those three names. So having said that, if we don't give three names, I think that might leave the door open for them to add additional names. So I think there's value in sending three names, although I know who I'd like to support. But I do think we should definitely rank them, whoever we send. I would like to suggest that we send Councilmember and former Mayor Hinton there. I will remember during CASA, both her as well as Councilmember Adams for Rohnert Park were one of the few council members that were willing to stand up as newer faces and try and be part of working on these important solutions when many other people shied away because there was some controversy at the time. And I feel like that should be rewarded. And I'm sure when we get to ABAG, we'll speak more about that. But definitely in the case of MTC, I think Ms. Hinton would be my first choice. After that, Ms. Fleming from Santa Rosa certainly makes a good case. Both Ms. Hinton and Ms. Fleming have contacted me, so I appreciate that. The others from Petaluma did not. And there's several ways to go there. So I'll just leave it at that for now, but that would be the direction I'd give.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lyman. Councilmember Ford?
I agree with Vice Mayor Lyman about my first choice. I think representative of another small city in the county would be very good for us, MTC. MTC distributes a lot of grant funding, and paying attention to the needs of small cities is really important in that group, in addition to paying attention to the northernmost county. So I agree with that first choice. I was not contacted by any of the other Councilmember Hinton contacted me and none of the other three, so I'm just going on letters for the other three, and Councilmember Barnacle, or perhaps he's mayor or vice mayor, I don't know, Brian Barnacle's letter most aligned with what I think are important directions for MTC to be looking at among those other three. So if we're going to forward more than one name, I would support Brian Barnacle for the second position.
Thank you. And Councilmember Harvey.
Yes, so I spoke with NASA and I spoke with Mike Healy. So they would be my 1 and 2. And then Brian Barnacle has been participating of late in a lot of the North Bay Division things. And I have been really impressed with what I have heard from him, and along with Councilmember Ford. I mean, I think his career in energy and transportation policy, I think kind of aligns with what's going on with MTC. So I would choose him as my third. So you're going to have to keep track there.
Yeah, well, I missed that third one, Councilmember Harvey.
So Brian Barnacle is my third.
Okay. So
Through the mayor, if I could real quickly, if this is helpful, because we've been down this road before.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some agreement among the council so far, at least leaning towards Councilmember Hinton. But although we're supportive of the other people, we're all over the map there. One thing we could do is, if this is the final direction, and depending after Councilmember Sparks shares her thoughts, if we do, and I don't mean to jump the gun here, forgive me, Laura, but if we do wind up supporting NISA, then we could allow the mayor the discretion to support any of the other three candidates depending as the vote goes. Because, for example, say we picked Victoria as our number 2, as I'd like to do. Perhaps she doesn't get enough votes, and it would be more helpful for him to vote for Mr. Barnacle. we could give him the opportunity to be flexible in the meeting. So if we can't come to a consensus rather than racking our brains, we could do that with this or any of the other picks tonight. So I just wanted to suggest that.
Okay. Councilmember Sparks?
I just also wanted to support Brian Barnacle, Councilmember Barnacle, for this position. So I'll throw my weight there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I get to weigh in on this, and my particular position, and I don't know if the council would support this, but I would support Hinton as 1, Fleming as 2, and Barnacle as 3. I think they line up more with most of what our constituents would be concerned with. So I don't know if that works for you guys.
I like Mark's suggestion that basically says wait and see. It seems like we all agree on one, and depending upon where things are headed when you're in there.
Well, I just saw Ben give a thumbs up to the mayor's suggestion. I could live with that. I like it just fine. If we get a little more consensus on that, perhaps we can go with that as a strong 1 for Ms. Hinton, 2 for Fleming, and a 3 for Barnacle, and still give the mayor some flexibility if he needs it when he goes there for those secondary positions. Would that be acceptable?
Well, yeah, because it might end up being, Mark, for all we know, that maybe ultimately Brian might be too, because that's the way the air is flowing.
Exactly.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
so if we have a rough consensus, we know where we're in the top. We're pretty aligned, I think, in the next few picks, and then we leave a little flexibility there. Maybe we've got what we need.
Councilmember Ford?
Vice Mayor Lamb covered it. I'm good.
Terrific.
So are you okay?
Am I okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, so if it sounds like we have a consensus that we could go with Hinton, Fleming, and Barnacle, and if the shifting winds of change occur at that meeting on the 11th, we can vote then, and you guys won't know until afterwards anyway.
I think we did suggest, though, that was for the 2 and 3 position. I think we were pretty locked to number 1.
Right. Okay, I think we have a consensus on that one. Okay, so shall we go back to Golden Gate Bridge, or shall we move on to the Board of Directors appointments?
Depends if Laura's ready.
I think this is a really difficult decision for me because I think both people would do an amazing job, but I think I'm going to support Mayor Gerard Giudice in Rohnert Park because I think our interests as neighbor cities are just so closely aligned. And I really want to thank Mayor Popoli of Windsor. Very, very difficult decision.
Thank you. So I think we have a 3-2 on that one for the Golden Gate Bridge, and that would be Mr. Giudice. Okay, now we can move on to the Board of Directors appointments. And the first one is for ABAG, and we have...
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
No, that's okay. I just want to make a correction here. This, in our presentation, it might have been corrected in this presentation, but in our packet said that it was for the Regional Planning Committee, and it is actually for the Executive Committee.
Board.
So I just want everyone to kind of get that, number one. And number two, if you look at the actual letters that were sent in, Susan and Ariel and Dennis all were seeking the position. However, Dennis and it was a little for the alternate on the Planning Commission, if available, which the Planning Commission isn't what it is that we're looking here. So we didn't really get anyone that applied for an alternate. So that's a little bit, I don't know.
You broke up a little bit on that, Councilmember Harvey.
So we got
You were
no
indicating-
application. Sorry, we got no letters for the alternate. We got 3 letters seeking the member position, and Dennis also asked for a position that isn't even available, and that's on the planning committee.
Okay.
So
I wonder if it would be appropriate if we do not consider Mr. Kosike right now, Dr. Kosike? And we look
well,
at... Go ahead.
so he did for the member of the executive committee, or he said as the alternate on the planning, and that isn't even on here. So I think his letter was a little bit confusing.
Oh, okay.
Let me find that letter.
Well,
but we got no one applied for the alternate. So my question is, can we even or an alternate position if we didn't get any letters for an alternate position?
I don't know that we could place anybody in that if we didn't get any letters for it.
Right. That was my concern.
Okay.
Well, if they don't show up at the meeting, we can appoint whoever we want, and it's their own fault, by gosh.
Yeah, Dennis's letter specifically says, request for appointment to the ABAG Planning Committee if a position is available, or if position open, or request for appointment to the ABAG Executive Board. So, yeah.
Councilmember Ford?
Yeah, none of the 3 mentioned any alternate positions in their
Right.
letters, which makes me believe that the clerk who sent the letters out checked with them in creating, because the direction we got was very clear that Dr. Kosike was applying for either the member or alternate, and the other 2 were only interested in members. So, I mean, we can leave the alternate position up to Mayor Moore as far as I'm concerned, and see how it goes. You know, he can see how it goes on Thursday. I don't feel like we should spend too much time on that, but all 3 of them did apply for the member position, and I think they are.
Correct.
Okay.
But I think, Ben, if she did talk to him, I would have thought that we would have gotten some kind of a correction letter saying that it was applying for the alternate rather than the way it was worded in her letter. And it could be she just didn't realize there were 2 different committees, and when she saw the "or," assumed that that was what the alternate was. Maybe, but we don't.
Vice Mayor Lemon?
Well, yeah, I think we're not going to get clarity on that one tonight. I think Councilmember Ford called it, and I want to thank Councilmember Harvey for the usual attention to detail and clarifying that for us. Even though it might not feel like clarifying, I'm glad that that was put forward for us to be aware of it. But what we have here is the typical situation we run into all the time. All 3 of these people are serious candidates that could do a good job. Councilmembers Adam and Kelly have both reached out beyond just a letter, done phone calls, I know at least to me. And their history for both of them are rather extensive, and they both have very good backgrounds, so we're in the quandary of they're both really good. I would just share, as I shared with Councilmember Kelly, as much as impressed as I was, that I would be supporting Councilmember Adams because number one, they're very close, but Councilmember Adams has some more time and grade working towards this. And more importantly, when we needed people to step forward to start getting involved in ABAG and MTC, she was willing to do it when others weren't. And I feel that gives just that small little bit extra that makes me comfortable suggesting her. With that, the good news is we would be in good hands with any of these candidates. That I can tell you as newer council members. None of these people would do a bad job.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lemon. It sounds like we have some direction for 2 positions on the ABAG executive. Councilmember Ford?
Yeah, I was going to agree with Vice Mayor Landman about my first choice. I'm persuaded by Susan Adams' experience in ABAG and the arena process and being there for the county. So between the other two, if it comes down to it at the meeting, Mayor Moore, I'm Councilmember Kelly's credentials are incredibly strong for this position, and so I would support her over Councilmember Bosicki.
Okay. Councilmember Harvey?
Yes, I would like to go with Susan Adams for the same, it's getting kind of late. As Vice Mayor Landman said, and I think I agree that Ms. Kelly's credentials are really good, and maybe one of the things that might be able to be considered at the meeting, because I know sometimes things come from the floor, is maybe it's possible that she can submit to the committee for an alternate. Maybe that might be something that she might consider, since there's also that position available. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility.
Did you indicate previously that the regional planning or the regional executive committee is only one position and not two?
No, it's two positions. It's a member and an alternate, but nobody applied for the alternate.
Got it.
So a lot of times when there's member and alternate positions, as you'll recall, people will say, I'll take this or that, but nobody did in this case, which is unusual, but it is what it is.
Right. Councilmember Sparks?
I noticed that Councilmember Kelly is still in the meeting. I wonder if we could clarify with her whether she's interested in the alternate position.
I would certainly be willing to entertain a comment from Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you, council members. Yes, at this point in time, I do have 4 other cities who have nominated me as their first choice, and there is somewhat of confusion about what Santa Rosa voted on, but if I do not get the #1 member position, I certainly would be honored to serve as the alternate should I not have the necessary majority votes to be your member.
Thank you.
So do you have enough direction on this, Mayor Moore?
I think so. It sounds as if there is a inkling to go with Councilmember Adams at this point, and potentially Councilmember Kelly as the alternate. Do I see any disagreement with that? Okay. We did have a public comment there. I don't know if we want to, I think we were going to open up the public comment until we were done with this, and then before we finalized everything. So with that, we have North Bay Division of League of California Cities, the Executive Board, 1 position. Mr. Sawyer, that's a given. Okay, Sonoma County Ag and Open Space, 3 positions. For 2-year term, Barnacle, Hinton, Kelly, and Palacios. Any direction on that?
Well, I'm hearing silence, so I'll jump in with a suggestion. I hate it. This is another one of the musical chair ones where there's a lot of seats, 3 seats, but unfortunately we have 4 people running and 2 from the same city. I'd like to see Councilmember Hinton continue there, because I think some continuity is the good thing when you have a big change on a board, and there is a big change there. With that, we weren't able to support Councilmember Kelly for her interest in ABAG to the degree she'd like, but perhaps we could support her here and help make that a little bit better. I think that would be a valuable move. And I would be happy to support Councilmember Palacios, but then we'd be supporting 2 people from Healdsburg. And I don't know Mr. Barnacle. We were supposed to actually have a call, and he didn't get back to me, but I think given his background and given the fact that Petaluma is pretty close to Cotati, and if we look at geographical stuff, with Barnacle, Hinton, and Kelly, we're keeping the geographical representation where it was previously. So that's a suggestion for a way to approach this.
I would second that and fully agree with you.
Councilmember Ford?
Me too.
Councilmember Sparks?
I really want to agree with all of that. There's one thing that holds me up, which is that I am really interested in raising and promoting the voices of people of color in these leadership roles and young people, and I think it would be a great opportunity for Councilmember Palacios to be able to bring that perspective.
Thank you very much. So we have, I would concur with Vice Mayor Landman, and so we have 4 in favor of that particular order, being Hinton, Kelly, and Barnacle. Okay. Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Board of Directors. Looks like we have just Ms. Bagme for that, so that's easy. Councilmember Sparks?
My hand was up from before, my apologies.
Okay. And then SMART Board of Directors, non-SCTA, Sonoma County Transportation Authority member, 1 position, Deborah Fletch. So I believe with all of that, I do have some direction in voting, and I will open this up to public comment on that.
Lisa Moore, go ahead.
I just wanted to add on that I think Brian Barnacle, as a new council member in Petaluma, has a lot of very progressive ideas that very align with what Cotati is all about. And I'm really glad that the council is supporting him I would like to see him as second, actually, instead of Victoria Fleming, and disagreeing with the mayor on that. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
So, thank you all for that. That's always a fun process. Especially, I sympathize with you, Councilmember Sparks and Councilmember Ford. When you don't necessarily know any of these people, where they're coming from and what's going on, other than the introduction in a short period of time, it can be difficult. So I sympathize with you on that. And if our esteemed city manager would kind of get back to me and let me know what you think we have, so that we're all in agreement.
Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Can I add one thing? I just would like to add for Councilmember Sparks, I think it's really important as these new council members come on that they really try and go forward and try and get on some of the different boards within Sonoma County. And I think they can kind of get their legs and stuff. So I would have you encourage Skylar to go ahead and see what she can do within her own council and on boards and kind of participate in that manner.
Thank you. City Manager Obid, if I may interrupt you for a minute, I think we need a vote to go beyond 10 o'clock. If I could get a motion from somebody, I don't think we have much left after that, other than the financial and some minor reports.
So move. Second.
Gotcha.
That's right.
A motion and a second to go beyond 10 o'clock. Can we get a roll call on that?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you very much. And Mr. Obid, back to you.
Mayor, so do you want me to do a recap on the voting, or you got that? We're
I
moving
think
to the
we
next
have the
item.
voting. I just want to make sure that we have the appropriate parties. That we're all in agreement on there. Yeah, you can give me the voting then.
Okay, so just real quick. City Selection Committee, where we landed was Teresa Barrett for ABAG, or I'm sorry, Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Golden Gate
Highway and Transportation District, Gerard Judice, LAFCO, Mark Landman, MTC, we have Nisa Hinton as a primary, and then allowing them, well, and a sort of an initial position of Victoria Fleming as number 2 and Brian Barnacle as number 3, but allowing the mayor flexibility to adjust those second and third votes as needed, depending on how the meeting goes. Nothing for RAN and nothing for the Oversight Board Committee. For the Board of Directors appointments, ABAG Executive Board, we have Susan Adams as the primary and Ariel Kelly as the alternate. North Bay League, John Sawyer. Sonoma Ag and Preservation District. The 3 candidates are Nisa Hinton, Ariel Kelly, Brian Barnacle. The order that we picked them in was Nisa Hinton first, Ariel Kelly second, Brian Barnacle third, in case that ranking matters during the discussion. Smart, Melanie Bagby, and Smart non-SCTA member, Deborah Fudge.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
That should make it clear as mud for Thursday.
Mayor Moore, could we have a 5-minute break before the last agenda item?
Absolutely. So we got 9:59. Let's come back at 10:05.
Oh, but I want to hear about the budget.
I know Angela's going to hate us, but we'll come back at 10:05. Well, it looks like we are at 10:05. Ms. Burgess, did we have everybody on?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I can't see all of our attendees or panelists at that matter. So with that, we'll move on to our mid-year budget with Ms. Porter. Ms. Porter, thank you so much for your patience. Sorry we kept you up so late.
No problem. I'm getting used to it.
Well, you can go in late tomorrow, so.
Okay, good. Well, good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of our community that are still here with us. Tonight, I'm proud to kick off our next stage of the city's budget cycle by reporting out our review of the mid-year's budget to actuals. Caroline, I'll see. Would you mind skipping to the next one? Thank you. So with this report, we'll give a brief overview of the budget process and then jump into a citywide overview, and then a detailed summary of the general fund revenues and expenditures, followed by our enterprise funds, also known as the water and sewer funds. And then, like we like to end everything, we want to end with what that cash and investments portfolio really looks like, since that's a required necessity to keep our budget moving forward. So our budget year 2020-2021 budget highlights, the year-to-date report as of December 2020. So we've continued to focus on really the economic development, and it's really changed with COVID-19 continuing to be an ongoing thing. During our budget planning process before, we knew this was going to be a piece of a short-term strategy, but not realizing it's now a big piece of this fiscal year that we're taking on to continue to support our local businesses and our overall economic development strategies. We've also are continuing to focus on our core services and the efficiencies in those processes due to, again, COVID, as well as other emergencies that continue to come up, like power shutoffs. We are continuing to meet and exceed our reserve policies for the general fund and our enterprise funds. And we are strategically funding our capital improvements, specifically those street improvement projects. So in recent news, we are still working hard to continuously improve our financial reporting, and so we did receive the budget, our CAFR award last year, and we're going to continue to improve our financial reporting in order to meet the guidelines of budgeting excellence as awarded by the CSMFO and the GFOA. So in order to receive this budget award, the city has to meet national guidelines for effective presentation, and these have to focus on providing a sound policy document that shows a financial plan, an operational guide, all while serving in a plain English that can be used by your community. So where are we now in this budget cycle? So for the fiscal year 2021, we adopted this budget in June of 2020. So a long time ago, but we're still working on those numbers. And since then, we've presented those monthly and quarterly updates of where we are, what our revenues are, where we see ourselves going, and what adjustments we might need to be making. Now, as the mid-year is closing and we're kicking off our next budget year cycle, looking towards our strategic plans and our workshops coming up. So please keep an eye out on the city website for any of those updates for those budget workshops, as we'd like to get our community members engaged in these to see what strategic objectives they'd like to have council address and push us towards. So citywide, where are we? What is the city looking like as far as revenues and expenses? So overall, the city's revenues are in line with budget at approximately 50.4%. There's definitely the general fund and special revenues are less than that 50%, and this is primarily just due to those timing of the revenue sources that come into those funds. Expenditures are also in line with budget at just less than 50%, and this is where the capital projects play a big role in that use of funds due to the projects that were rolled out for our streets projects in the fall of 2020. So this is also, again, just a summary of the same things. The revenues, again, citywide, we're on track. We don't anticipate a big significant change. I know last year we did propose a budget adjustment at mid-year because we saw sales tax coming in higher, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we're really not seeing anything drastically different where we would need to make any adjustments at this point in time. And we'll again dive into this a little bit deeper as we get into the general fund. So a picture of our public works, putting out the great platforms. And we'll just go a little bit of a deeper dive into our primary fund, which is the general fund for the city of Cotati. So approximately our revenues were at $3.8 million, or 48.5% of budget, where our expenditures were at $4.3 million and 49.9% of budget. And knowing that that is also, again, a big piece of that is the capital expenditures. So another way we like to compare the revenue expenditures is not just against budget, but we like to compare to it was where were we at this same time last year. So this fiscal year to date compared to the prior year, we're looking at revenues are up by approximately 12%, while expenditures, including those transfers for capital projects, are down by approximately 1.8%. So going a little bit deeper into those revenues. So what are those revenue sources and those changes in those revenue sources compared to last year as well as compared to our budget? So our primary revenue sources, of course, are our sales tax, our other taxes, the community development charges, and the public works charges for services. These are all those that had changed from the prior year. So the increase in sales tax that we've been continuing to talk about during our monthly updates are really due to that mix of the essential services we actually found that we have here in Cotati, and our some of our core businesses still being able to remain open during this elongated shelter-in-place order, as well as the increased county pool for tax receipts for those online sales, which was made under the Wayfair decision, is what you'll hear it referred to. The other taxes are primarily made up of the cannabis business taxes. As we continue to introduce more businesses into the city that are subject to those taxes, again, those revenue sources will grow. And lastly, those community development and public works service fees are related to primarily due to the Cussing Ranch. And as we spoke about earlier, the continued development there, as more housing comes on, we get additional permit fees, and those fees for services increase. So just because you can't put everything in numbers, even though you might want to, I like to provide a little bit of a picture of what proportion of these revenue sources are that are coming into the general fund. So you'll see that, again, the sales tax is really half of our overall revenue stream into the general fund, and a quarter of it is property taxes. We do get some other transfers in from our special revenue funds. Primarily Prop 172 does come in to support the police services. But again, we're still back to the community development charges, other taxes, and then other miscellaneous licenses, permits, and franchises. Those permits and franchises are ones we typically see come in at the very end of our fiscal year. So we will see those increase towards the latter half of our next 2 quarters. But again, it is still considered a smaller portion of our overall revenue stream. So this is really pretty indicative of where we'll still see ourselves at the end of the fiscal year, proportionately. So even though sales tax received are so vital to our ongoing city operations, it's important to note that not all sales are subject to sales tax. And of the sales taxes collected by businesses and submitted to the state, we only get a small share of what is collected here in Cotati. So a purchase that is subject to tax in Cotati that maybe is about $100 that's subject to that 9.25% tax, the city only receives less than $2. So even though it's a big part of our revenue stream, it really is not a big chunk of the taxes that are out there being paid on the purchases in our city or online. So the sales tax received to date, the annualized estimate is in line with budget. And so again, this year, we're not thinking that we're gonna need an adjustment like we thought we did last year. This year, we're really pretty in line with where we thought we were going to be, and we hope to be at the end of this fiscal year. So just like sales tax, property taxes collected by the property owners here in the city, we actually receive less than 11%. So for every dollar of property taxes, the city only receives 11 cents of that. So it's a good kind of thought process of what we're presenting to our city. We get a lot of use and streets and all kinds of other services that we can provide, with just 11 cents of that dollar that goes to property taxes. These property taxes are received twice a year, so again, this is just half of a portion. We did note that the property taxes did decrease by 5.3% over the prior year, and this is primarily due to commercial reassessments due to COVID and other situations. Commercial buildings can get to reassess themselves, and so there was a decrease there, and so we are seeing that decrease a little bit. But nothing that's off the mark for our budget at this point in time. So that's our revenues. So it's going to dig a little bit deeper into, okay, that's where all the funds are coming in. Where is it going out, and where are we in with our budget there? So a summary of our expenditures by type shows that overall cumulative major general fund expenditures decreased from the prior year by approximately 1.8%, or $79,000. Most of the decrease was due to the reduction in transfers out required for those capital projects, which was offset by increases to salaries and benefits, as well as other contract services, mostly in need of supporting services during this ongoing emergency. And then to kind of break it up into a different picture, we like to slice it up by not just by the activity of the expenditures, but what department the expenditures are coming out of. As you can see, there are some increased expenditures, but they really are overall in line with what we expected for budget. The only outlier here is really the council, and that's because we did have the election last year. And so that pushed the timing of the expenses towards the beginning of the year rather than the latter. So now into the water and sewer funds, the enterprise funds. So the water and sewer enterprise funds, the table includes accumulative revenues and expenses compared for the first half of the fiscal year, as well as the revenue to budget for actual comparisons for the 2021 for these enterprise funds. The water and wastewater fund revenues are made up of charges for services, connection fees, and other revenues and development fees. The revenue for both the water and wastewater funds have continued to increase due to a combination of rate changes and increased usage. Prior year revenues, we did have an increase due to some one-time connection fees we received related to Kesting Ranch. And that was related to skip bond funding, that we kind of got a chunk of funding all at one point in time, and we did receive that last year as opposed to this year. Overall, enterprise fund revenues and expenses compared to budget are on target, and we expect it to do so for the remaining part of the year. One significant difference was the increase in capital outlay expense for the wastewater fund over the prior year, and this is related to the William Olaf sewer line replacement. So jumping right into a summary of cash and investments, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go to the last page here, just kind of showing you a breakout of since the numbers don't always show you what you want, but this is really a depiction of where all of the cash and investments are by the types of funds. And I know we always I provide the bottom picture where it's the investment portfolio that shows that we have everything very fairly balanced for our investment policy, where we have it invested in safe and secure funds. and we do keep a certain balance in operating. But it's also nice to see the cash and investments for the cash balances for all the different types of operating funds. So we have the general fund balance there, as well as the water and sewer funds as well. Again, ending balance was 16.7 million as of December 31st, 2020 for the first half of the fiscal year. And again, investments are what they are. We are already very conservative, so there's not a high risk, but that means there's also not a high return right now. So that is something we do see decreasing. I know Sarvis brought this up before, is that typically we budget very, very low for returns on investments, and that's where we are right now. We're definitely not receiving the same amount like we were last year, but we also did not budget to receive that significant amount because we knew they were decreasing. So in conclusion, the first 2 quarters of 2021 year are on track with budget. There's no additional budget requests or adjustments at this point in time, and if there are, we would definitely bring them to council for adoption. City staff will continue to update the council of any forecasting changes that are deemed necessary, and we are definitely committed to exercising prudence and integrity of all the management of the public funds. And we look forward to kicking off the strategic planning and budget process going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. As usual, excellent report. I don't know if we have any questions from council or staff. Councilmember Harvey, are you sure?
I have no questions, but Angela, I appreciate all the detail, and thank you so much. And the pictures in the report make it even more enjoyable than just the numbers for those that don't like the numbers. John?
No, numbers don't lie. Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. Okay. Now we would move on to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So let me just, give me 1 second.
All those numbers that threw you off, isn't it? You're muted.
Did you mute on purpose?
No, I was sorry. I was just basking in the numbers there. Sorry about that. I know we all want to get home tonight. So, all right. So quick on COVID, the county vaccination program still working through the special higher risk groups. So it's all phase 1A tiers. All tiers are open. That's healthcare workers, first responders, skilled nursing facilities, and so forth. The county has started working into phase, what they call 1B, tier 1, which is primarily people over age 75. For the most part, I mean, that seems to be where they are right now. And still finishing up the focus on special populations based on exposure risk for the job or in high risk congregate living. Once we get to the general population, the state, I think, as you may all know, the state did change their vaccination plan. Rather than going through a bunch of tiers as they get past phase 1B tier 1, they're going to be just moving into the general population by age band. So that should hopefully make the vaccination program more efficient once they get to that. We did install more tents downtown at the end of January, and we're now talking with other restaurants for installation of the final 20 by 60 tents. We have two more tents to install. So that's going well, and everyone seems to be very appreciative of the extra outdoor space since we remain in purple, and we probably will for a while. Outdoor dining is the way for these restaurants to try to survive. I did want to point out, in case I think everyone noticed that went to our website, but our website was down for several days due to a national outage for the website hosting company that hosts the city's main website. Basically, when you log into the city site and hit the landing, the homepage, that's the website that was down for a couple days. And it hit hundreds of cities across the nation, and you may have also noticed Runner Park also went dark. They have the same hosting service. The city has also kicked off its local road safety plan, which is intended to analyze collision histories with stakeholder and public input and identify measures to make our roads safer. The plan's website is to go live in the next 2 weeks, and it will be a forum to present the plan schedule, preliminary findings, and gather community input. And this is sort of the next step in our safety program. The council, as you know, budgets money for safety improvements in the streets every year, and we've moved through the bulk of the low-hanging fruit. This is the next phase to really seek out where we go from here. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency is making progress on the draft Groundwater Sustainability Plan and plans to release it for public review in July or August. And also look for something called the Guide, which is the Groundwater User Information Data Exchange mailer that will be sent out on March 5th. So that's going to be coming up pretty quick. And why that's important is that anyone that owns a well, or we, as in the water agency, who's the lead agency, and the participating agencies think either has a well or could have a well, will be receiving letters asking them information about their wells as part of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. Today we opened bids for the three-way stop at West Sierra, and School Street, and also lighted pedestrian crosswalk at Cypress at West Sierra. And we got 7 bids. It looks like we have some good prices, so we're planning to bring this back to council on February 23rd for consideration for award. Water conservation. Although there is still time for rain this season, and some things have been helped by some changes in how the water agency has been able to operate the reservoirs with the Army Corps, which should help retain additional water through the spring and have it available in the summer for in-stream flows. It's still been below normal this year so far, and so the water agency and the water contractors, like this, such as the city of Cotati, have developed a campaign for this year, and the slogan is, "It's a dry year, save water with us." So please look for this message to be pushed out on social media, water bills, and the city's website, and other media outlets. Through SCTA, our CPA, there's an electric bike share program coming soon to our smart station and also downtown in the near future. I believe the target date to deploy these is in the spring of this year. And it's not just our smart station in our downtown, but it's along the smart rail line. There's going to be hopefully some electric bikes there. And then also, just I think at this meeting at least knows, we think we've lost most of the public at this point, but there will be a joint City Council and Planning Commission workshop on land use in CEQA at our next City Council meeting date on February 23rd. This workshop will be before the actual City Council meeting, so it'll start at 5 p.m. We also will be doing a drawing for an iPad mini tomorrow on Facebook, and this is for people that signed up for our auto pay for utility bills. We had over 550 people sign up for auto pay, so a lot of response there. It's great to see. And then, as the mayor mentioned earlier in this meeting, this week is our inaugural Love Your Neighbor Week in Cotati, so each day is a different activity to participate in, celebrating our community. Today is Chalk Your Walk, where residents decorate their driveways and sidewalks with chalk to spread positivity in their neighborhoods. Wednesday, tomorrow, we ask the community to show their local love by posting pictures of themselves on social media, supporting the Cotati business. On Thursday, we will see how much Cotati rocks in our new rock garden that was installed in Delano Park. And so people are encouraged to leave their own decorated rocks in the garden for everybody to see. And then rounding out the week will be Valentine's Day grams, which will be delivered to Cotati addresses or businesses, and include a flower, candy, sticker, and personalized card to the registered recipients. So you might see us driving around delivering Valentine grams with love on Friday in our decked out Valentine's car to almost 70 residents. I haven't seen the car decoration yet, but I am definitely looking forward to that. Next Wednesday evening and Sunday morning, we'll be hosting 2 Zoom workshops on the Cotati Park playground improvements that will be coming soon. So you should be seeing advertisements on that very soon. So if you would like to take part in helping us decide what playground designs to install in Cotati Park this year, please join us. And you can also email ashley@awilson@cotaticity.org for the Zoom invite. You can do that directly. In addition to, this will also be available on the sort of the public information to try to get people at the meeting. And then also spring break camp registration is open. We'll be hosting in-person camp during the week. Children are off from school. We'll be, of course, following all health guidelines to provide the most safe and fun environment possible. But part of that is space is limited, so sign up early to ensure your spot. We also look forward to bringing our drive-in movies back in March and continuing through the spring, as well as other virtual and socially distanced programs. So for any information on any of these city programs or recreation programs specifically, you can contact Ashley Wilson at 665-4222 or awilson@cotaticity.org, and also, of course, always on our city website and social media pages. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Obid. Do we have any questions from the council for Mr. Obid? Not at this hour? Okay, thank you so much. Great job by the rec department and you guys, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And now we'll go to city council member reports. Anyone want to lead off on that one? Apparently not. Well, there we go. Councilmember Harvey.
I have a long list, because remember but I'll try and be brief by get into very much detail. February 20th, I attended the waste management. One of the items is what I forward for serviceware and the second item, waste characterization step shift when they're going to do it because it's so expensive and we don't do it very often, to do the dry season in each year and the wet season in early 2022 so that we get our money's worth out of that. On January 25th, I attended a household hazardous waste ad hoc committee, and they gave us possible financing for household hazardous waste facility, North County.
Councilmember Harvey, I hate to interrupt you. You are breaking up in between, so I'm not picking up all the other words. I'm wondering if we can go to Councilmember Ford and come back, and maybe your connection will be a little stronger.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford?
I won't give Councilmember Harvey's connection much time to recover. I'm just going to, the Russian River Watershed Association, I'm a new board member there, got a crash course and introduction to the agency, and sat on an overview with city staff of the work plan for the year, which is an impressive body of work. So I'm looking forward. I have a board meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. I think the technical advisory committee met today.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey, let's try you again.
All right, I'll try again. My internet was off time, huh? So then on the 27th, we had a North Bay Division kind of chat with Mike McGuire. As most of you know Mike, he went a lot of things lately, but it was really very well attended and a lot of really good questions. And I think Mike with quite a list of things work on from people our area, so that was great. On the 20th, I attended the groundwater meet. Said that guide program registration will be happening soon. We will also be having some rural residential focus groups soon, and they went over the schedule for the GSP. We've got a really tight schedule this year in order to get that done because it has to be submitted early next year. On 1/28, I attended Bay Division Coffee Chat, and that was really great because we got to meet a whole lot of new people. number of new council members, the different, all within our division. So it's not just in Sonoma County, but it's all over. So that was great. On February 1st, we had our WAC meeting. Damien mentioned the water saving partnership, so I won't go over that. And I think most of you saw in the paper the forecast informed reservoir operations final viability assessment report. There was a press release on that. And just of note on that, just so people are aware that we were able to save 20% of the water in Lake Mendocino, which is about 11,000 acre feet. So that's pretty incredible because that water would have been let out had we not done that. They're looking to do that process in at least 4 other dams, so that's pretty exciting. On 2/4, I attended my area's beat meeting. It was great. Thanks to Chief Parrish, the officers for doing. I think there was about people at our meeting, and it was great to have the officers do that. And then last, I feel like speed talking here. Last, to remind everyone that the North Division meeting will be a meeting 25 at 1:30. Is on racial equity, and it features presentation from Stephen Menendian of UC Berkeley's Othering and Belonging Institute. So that should be pretty good. That's all.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Lemon?
Actually, I think Councilmember Sparks had her hand up before me, and it seems like she has a question or wants to comment. So if it's okay with you, I'd be happy to let her go first.
Well, I typically go with age before beauty, but I would certainly make an exception in this case. Councilmember Sparks?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was trying to get out a question just because Councilmember Harvey, you cut out when you were saying the name of what that last meeting is that you were mentioning on the 25th.
Oh, it's the North Bay Division General Membership meeting, Thursday, February 25th.
Thank you. If Councilmember Landon, if you'd like to give your report first, that would be just fine with me.
No, go ahead. You have the floor. Let's do it.
Okay, so I just have one meeting to comment on, which is I went to the Health Action meeting on Friday, and I'll be very fast. They gave us a very excellent presentation about the Caritas Village project that is slated to be built. They're saying they're just over a year from opening, and it sounded very exciting. 47,000 square feet of emergency shelter space and 128 units of permanent affordable housing. They had an item that they asked for from people who are there, which is if we're willing to send a letter of support from our organization, it will help them with their competitiveness for grants. So that was just something to put on your radar. We also had an excellent presentation from Cloverdale about City of Cloverdale and their Health Action Network chapter there are trying to start buying into the self-healing communities model, which is basically a way of looking at policy and planning through a lens of trying to interrupt the cycles of adverse childhood experiences being transferred intergenerationally to younger folks. And it's something that I'm going to be doing a little bit more research into, and you might be hearing more about that because they were asking for us to consider as a city council adopting basically a commitment to use the self-healing communities model in our deliberations, that we would think about those kinds of factors. So it's something new. And then last, we received a report on messaging that the county is planning to do regarding COVID vaccines, and they're focusing on this say yes theme. Say yes to leaving COVID behind, say yes to the vaccine, say yes to protecting our communities. They're very concerned that there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy and skepticism out there. And so I think once the vaccine becomes more available for the general public, maybe we can play a role in helping to promote that. I heard a disturbing number even on the radio today that nationwide, 50% of adults say they're willing to be vaccinated, which was a stressfully low number in my mind. So that's something to be aware of. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sparks. Vice Mayor Lemon.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope that willingness to be vaccinated grows. And I think that's what we are seeing, at least recently, that's beginning to rise, so we'll cross our fingers for that. I know a lot of us in my age group are certainly ready as soon as it comes available, so there won't be a problem there, I can tell you that. Two quick reports, one from Sonoma Clean Power. You may remember reading in the paper, there was a owner of a local bank in the last year that had been working through some well-reported lawsuits to block some GHG reducing efforts, both in Windsor and Santa Rosa, related to the electrification of new homes and reducing the use of natural gas in new homes. And I had mentioned last meeting that Sonoma Clean Power had about somewhere north of 20 million invested in that local bank for some years. And so I did bring that up at our previous meeting to this week's one and suggested that, not in a punitive fashion, but where we invest is important. When you have more than $20 million to invest, that can be a tool for something positive, but you certainly wouldn't want to use it to reward something that works in opposition to your organization's values. So at any rate, I just wanted to report that at our meeting the other day, staff reported they've begun the process of moving those funds to other banks, local banks that are more in sync with the direction and values of our organization and our ratepayers. So wanted to share that. Sonoma County Transit Authority, I just wanted to mention quickly to staff, I'm sure you're already aware of this, but one item we had, 4.1.2 from MTC, this is the Safe and Seamless Mobility Quick Strike Program. I don't know how you even turn that into an acronym, I don't think you can, but what it is some money from MTC, I think, what are they talking, 3 or 4 million maybe to our region to be spread. It's a competitive program. And they're looking for projects, as the name would suggest, that can be done quickly. And the emphasis is like bike ped safety and mobility, so good projects for Cotati. I don't know if it works for us because typically things like this in MTC, the paperwork is enormous, the time and cost of doing it, sometimes it almost isn't worth it. This was something that the mayor of Santa Rosa pointed out was some concern for all of us. But at any rate, I just wanted to flag it for staff if you haven't seen it. I know this came out close to the end of last month, and MTC had some further guidance early this month, so just wanted to share that. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll find something Cotati has on the plate ready to go that fits, and we'll be able to do it. So that's my report for this week, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lemon. And a couple of things regarding REMIF and the transition with Parsac, the new CIRA. As you can imagine, the insurance rates are significantly higher. We will have a presentation coming down the road with our director on that, Amy Northam. So that'll be coming out down the road. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was, I have to look at the date there to make sure. The Cotati Chamber of Commerce will have their drive-through crab feed on February 20th. So since we can't do it in person, they're going to do a drive-through, and that will be one of their fundraisers for the organization. So I would encourage you to support that if you can. And that's it on the public, on the city council reports. Now I would go to public comment on non-action agenda items, if we have any that want to comment on that. And it does not look like we have any. Let's see, do we have any information received after the agenda was posted? Ms. Burgess?
Nothing further.
Thank you so much. Unless we have anything further, I thank you all for another late meeting. It's a lot of information. I will look forward to seeing several of you on the 11th at the City Council Mayor's meeting. It'll be the first one of the year. We'll probably have some direction on how that's going to look going forward. Not having those in person, of course, makes it different. Last year was completely thrown off. And other than that, stay safe and talk to you soon. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.